Chapter 318. Chu Xiu's heaven's sun gazing at air was just a beginner's level. Naturally, he couldn't reach the great mastery level of the heaven's sun gazing at air's ability to predict heaven's secrets, which was comparable to the power of ghosts and gods. However, even if it was just a beginner's level, it was enough for Chu Xiu. Feng Wuling was indeed very powerful. Even under Chu Xiu's heaven's sun gazing at air, his sword aura was almost invulnerable. The natural Yu maiden swordplay could be said to be a sword technique with the least flaws. It was a sword bestowed by the heavens. If one wanted to find its flaws, they would have to find the flaws of the entire world. Although there were no flaws in the sword technique, there were flaws in the person. Previously, Chu Xiu accidentally cracked the Yu maiden sword in Feng Wuling's hand, causing him to lose his cool and fall into a violent rage. This was Feng Wuling's flaw, the flaw in his state of mind. The blade of the sword tore through the sky. Under that powerful might, the wind and rain were torn apart. The aura on Chu Xiu's body fluctuated. In Chu Xiu's eyes, lines condensed into Feng Wuling's trajectory. Even the vital energy around his body was constantly changing, reflecting in Chu Xiu's eyes. Now that Chu Xiu was severely injured, there was only one chance. Feng Wuling would die if he grasped that flaw. If he failed, Chu Xiu would die. Among those twisting lines, the anger and murderous intent in Feng Wuling's heart caused the center of his sword force to be the most unstable. At the moment when one of the lines twisted, Chu Xiu also made his move. His right arm was severely injured. With his left hand holding the blade, monstrous demonic aura condensed on the blade. The blood-refined divine shield was condensed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. His body took the initiative to collide with Feng Wuling. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. Could it be that Chu Xiu had gone mad? Was he sending himself to his death? However, the next scene was beyond their imagination. Chu Xiu's blade collided with Feng Wuling's sword. The blade slashed out at an extremely tricky angle. All the demonic aura gathered at one point and exploded. The Yu maiden sword in Feng Wuling's hand suddenly shattered. No! Feng Wuling roared furiously, his eyes filled with endless madness. The Yu maiden sword was the only remembrance left to him by his lover, as well as the only thing he could entrust his heart to. Now that it had been destroyed by Chu Xiu, he instantly fell into a frenzy. Although it was the same sword force of the Yu maiden sword, it was filled with endless anger and murderous intent. Although it was the same sword force as the Yu maiden sword, it was Chu and Feng Wuling, Wuling, and Chu Xiu, sword. With a Feng Xiu and Xiu, Feng, and blood, Shan, Feng, and blood, Feng, Chu Xiu, Shan, and Feng, and Chu Wu, Feng, Zais, Chen, and Chu Xiu, Feng, Chu, to, Chen Chu to, Chu Wu Xiu Ling, Xiu. The arena was silent. A bloody hole appeared under Chu Xiu's ribs, and fresh blood was flowing out slowly. At the critical moment, Chu Xiu had used the heaven's sun gazing at air spell to predict Feng Wuling's attack trajectory. He had forcefully shifted his position and condensed his qi of vigor. Therefore, only a bloody hole had appeared under his ribs. Otherwise, Feng Wuling's attack would have completely shattered Chu Xiu's heart. However, when they looked at Feng Wuling's side, everyone present gasped in shock. Feng Wuling stood on the spot with a pale face, and there was a bloody wound on his neck. Feng Wuling lifted his head, and a look of relief appeared in his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, fresh blood spurted out from his neck, and his body fell to the ground. Chu Xiu heaved a sigh of relief. He had won this round, but it was a fluke. The heaven's sun gazing at air spell could only give Chu Xiu a chance. Whether or not Chu Xiu could grasp this opportunity depended on himself. Just now, he had used all his strength. After using the heaven's sun gazing at air spell to identify Feng Wuling's loophole, he finally shattered Feng Wuling's qi of vigor with one slash, and the edge of his blade had narrowly slid across Feng Wuling's neck. He was really very lucky in this battle. In all fairness, Feng Wuling was very strong. If Chu Xiu had not managed to create a crack on his Yu maiden sword, causing Feng Wuling to be enraged, Chu Xiu would not have been able to find his loophole. By the time Chu Xiu completely shattered Feng Wuling's maiden sword, Feng Wuling had already descended into madness. As a martial artist who had lost his mind, he was full of loopholes. The only difference was whether or not Chu Xiu could successfully grasp this loophole. Chu Xiu did not see Feng Wuling's final gaze. In fact, Feng Wuling's heart had already died after his lover committed suicide. Feng Wuling was just a walking corpse who only knew how to think about the past. Although he was not afraid of death, he did not have the motivation to live. Now that Chu Xiu had killed him, Feng Wuling could actually be considered a release for him. At this moment, Feng Wuling's death made everyone present fall silent. What did they just see? Chu Xiu actually killed a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. A three-flower realm cultivator killing someone at the unity of heaven and man realm was simply unheard of. At the very least, they had never heard of such a thing. This kind of strength was simply unimaginable. At this moment, everyone looked at Chu Xiu with horror in their eyes. Was he still human? Up in the restaurant, Chan Er's eyes were also filled with horror. When one's strength reached a certain level, it would make one ignore one's background. Chan Er had always thought that her master was the most outstanding. It was not like her master had never killed a martial artist at the Five Qis origin realm. Killing someone one level higher was definitely not difficult for Xiahou Wujiang. However, no matter how strong Xiahou Wujiang was, he was not strong enough to be able to kill a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, especially when Feng Wuling was not an ordinary one. Even among the many martial artists at the unity of heaven and man realm, Feng Wuling was considered an expert. With Chan Er's strength, she naturally could not see the danger in the battle between Chu Xiu and Feng Wuling, as well as the flaws in Feng Wuling's performance. Anyway, in the eyes of most people in the Jianghu, they only looked at the results and did not care about the process. They only saw that Chu Xiu killed Feng Wuling. It was that simple. Just now, Chan Er made the decision to let Feng Wuling kill Chu Xiu on her own. It was because she saw the threat Chu Xiu posed. Previously, Xiahou Wujiang did not take Chu Xiu seriously. He had only done this to vent his anger. However, after Chan Er saw Chu Xiu's performance, she knew that if Chu Xiu did not die, he would definitely become a great enemy of her master in the future. Therefore, even though Chan Er knew that Feng Wuling would easily expose himself, she still insisted on letting Feng Wuling kill Chu Xiu. Even if Feng Wuling's identity was exposed and he could not fight for a period of time, it was all worth it as long as he could kill Chu Xiu. However, Chan Er never imagined that Chu Xiu would be so strong that even Feng Wuling died in his hands. Chan Er had already made up her mind. After she returned to the Xiahou clan, she would definitely let her master use all his strength to kill Chu Xiu. Otherwise, if today's matter was exposed, Chu Xiu would definitely become her master's sworn enemy. With such an enemy, her master would definitely be in endless trouble in the future. At the same time, even though Chu Xiu was heavily injured, not a single person in the crowd dared to try and take advantage of him, and it was even to the extent that many people had fled in secret. At this moment, Chu Xiu was no different from a demon in their hearts. Who would dare to go forward and court death? At this moment, Chu Xiu looked at Lin Nani with a sinister murderous look in his eyes. It did not matter whether Lin Nani died or not. What was important was that he wanted to know who set up this trap today. In the battle with Feng Wuling just now, Chu Xiu could not hold back, and it was impossible for him to hold back. Fortunately, there was still Lin Nani alive to interrogate. Seeing Chu Xiu's gaze, Lin Nani suddenly shivered and turned to flee. Just now, he thought that with an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm coming forward, this matter would be in the bag, and Chu Xiu would definitely die. However, who would have thought that Chu Xiu was so abnormal that he could even kill an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm? If he had known earlier, he would have fled first. However, it was not too late to escape now. Chu Xiu had just fought with an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, and he was also seriously injured. It was impossible for him to be as fast as before. In fact, it was indeed as Lin Nani had guessed. Chu Xiu's injuries were not light. Even the speed of the internal binding seal could not be unleashed to its limit. However, Lin Nani did not wait for him to run far before a warrior at the Three-Flower Realm suddenly rushed out of an alley and directly punched at Lin Nani. If Lin Nani was at his peak, he naturally did not care about a small warrior at the Three-Flower Realm. However, he was currently running for his life and did not expect someone to suddenly attack him. This caught Lin Nani off guard and made him block in a panic, but his body was involuntarily blasted a few steps back. The warrior at the Three-Flower Realm who attacked smiled proudly and said, "Old thing, you dare to be so arrogant in my River Sun Prefecture? Now you will suffer." The warrior who suddenly attacked was the local tyrant of River Sun Prefecture, the leader of the Green Tiger Gang. Previously, Lin Nani led a group of people to attack in River Sun Prefecture, not caring about the Green Tiger Gang at all. This had long since made him resentful. However, at that time, Lin Nani and the others were powerful, so he did not dare to say anything. Now, seeing how brave Chu Xiu was and how he beat the other party into a mess, the leader of the Green Tiger Gang did not mind hitting him when he was down. After being repelled by the sneak attack, Lin Nani did not have time to be angry. He felt a murderous intent coming at him, which made Lin Nani immediately feel bad. Before Lin Nani could turn around, a bright light had already bloomed behind him. The complete Aquarius seal. With a loud bang, Lin Nani was blasted and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he was immediately lifted up by his neck by Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu smiled at Lin Nani and said coldly, "You are very good at running. Why don't you keep running now?" Chapter 319. With a move of his body, Chu Xiu went straight to the restaurant. At this time, Chan was actually ready to escape, but she was blocked by Chu Xiu. This made her expression change suddenly, and at the same time, she secretly cursed Lin Nani and the others for being unreliable. But what was even more shocking was the result of Chu Xiu's battle. Chu Xiu looked in the direction that Lin Nani was pointing, and the corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile. Then, he suddenly exerted force in his hand and directly crushed Lin Nani's neck. After killing 2 people to vent his anger, Xiahou Wujiang squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, "Chu Xiu." After hearing that it was Xiahou Wujiang, Chu Xiu also had a strange expression on his face. To be honest, he really didn't think that this person would be Xiahou Wujiang. His own woman was killed by Chu Xiu. If Xiahou Wujiang remained indifferent, could he still be considered a man? Just now in the Heyang Prefecture, Chu Xiu was actually holding on. These 2 rogue cultivators thought about it and agreed. The Xiahou clan, one of the 9 great clans, casually squeezed out something from between their teeth, and it was enough for them to eat for a lifetime. Therefore, these 2 warriors also volunteered to bring Chan Er's corpse to the Xiahou clan, and the others actually didn't fight for it, which made the 2 quite surprised. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "It seems that my deterrence is still not enough. Your Lin clan is in River East. Do you want to die, and you still want to implicate the old and young in your family? If you tell me, I will let your Lin clan live. If you don't, I will kill your whole family. Don't doubt me, this is not the first time I have done this." Lin Nani gritted his teeth and said, "You really won't touch my Lin clan?" Because it had been some time since the God Weapon Conference, he subconsciously thought that if Xiahou Wujiang wanted to retaliate against him, he would definitely have done it long ago, instead of dragging it until now. "I, Chu Xiu, will do what I say. I still have this bit of credibility," Chu Xiu said indifferently. Several days later, within the Xiahou clan. Looking at Lin Nani, Chu Xiu said coldly, "Tell me, who is the person who ordered you to do this?" Chen was not only his personal maid, but also the person who slept by his side. However, Xiahou Wujiang did not have a proper wife, so Chan was only a maid. Otherwise, her identity would have been that of a concubine. Lin Nani thought for a while and finally seemed to have made up his mind. He said in a low voice, "It was Xiahou Wujiang who contacted us secretly and asked us to provoke the emotions of the warriors of Eastern Qi to kill you. After the shock, their emotions turned into anger. In the end, it turned out to be Xiahou Wujiang, which really surprised Chu Xiu." Lin Nani stared at Chu Xiu in disbelief. "Didn't you just say that you wouldn't kill me? You changed your mind in the blink of an eye?" However, they did not expect that the person who made the move was actually Xiahou Wujiang. In their opinion, Xiahou Wujiang and Chu Xiu had a grudge, but the grudge between the two sides should not have reached such a level. It was rumored that Xiahou Wujiang would seek revenge for the smallest grievance and was narrow-minded. Obviously, this was indeed the case. As his voice fell, Chu Xiu looked in the direction of the restaurant, and his eyes revealed a ferocious killing intent. Xiahou Wujiang looked at Chan Er's corpse with an expressionless face, but the people around him could feel the soaring anger that was about to erupt from Xiahou Wujiang's body. In that Azura-like massacre just now, Chu Xiu had completely killed their guts. Not to mention that Chu Xiu still had the strength to fight. Even if Chu Xiu was lying on the ground and looked like he was about to die, it was estimated that not many people would dare to go forward to test him. Chu Xiu's seemingly calm words made Lin Nani shiver all of a sudden because he knew that what Chu Xiu said was true. He had killed 3 5-Cheese Origin Realm martial artists in a row, as well as several 3-Flower Realm martial artists in the 3-Flower Realm and a group of martial artists from the 3-Flower Realm. He had killed hundreds of people on his own, which was shocking enough. After leaving River Sun Prefecture, Chu Xiu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and an abnormal flush emerged on his pale face. His face was still pale, and anyone could see that Chu Xiu was seriously injured. However, none of the warriors present dared to follow Chu Xiu, let alone hit him when he was down. Looking at Chu Xiu's murderous face, Chan hurriedly said, "Chu." In fact, some people had already instigated the anger of the Eastern Qi warriors before, and some people with a clear mind had already seen that someone was definitely plotting this. Now, it seemed that it was indeed the case. However, things were a little different from what they had imagined. Xiahou Wujiang had been looking at the corpse for a while, but he had no intention of rewarding the two of them, which made them a little anxious. This person was quite famous in the Jianghu a few years ago, and he was also a well-known existence among the many Unity of Heaven and Man Realm warriors in the Jianghu. In the end, he died at the hands of Chu Xiu, and at the hands of a 3-Flower Realm warrior in the 3-Flower Realm. How could this not make everyone exclaim? Standing opposite Xiahou Wujiang, the two lone cultivators who had not yet reached the innate realm looked at each other, and they were both a little anxious. Lin Nani's face was full of despair as he was held by the neck by Chu Xiu. There was a hint of struggle in Lin Nani's eyes. Say it? How could it be so simple? If he said it, would Xiahou Wujiang let them go? Chu Xiu's most serious injury was not external, but internal. However, Chen could not think so much at this time. As Chu Xiu pulled out the heavenly demon dance, Chan Er's corpse fell to the ground, causing the people around to shiver. One of the warriors mustered up the courage to ask, "Young Master Xiahou." However, what was even more shocking was that Chu Xiu had actually killed Feng Wuling, the mortal sword. When Chan regained consciousness, the pitch-black heavenly demon dance had completely pierced through her. Large amounts of blood flowed from her mouth, and Chan's eyes were full of disbelief. At this moment, Xiahou Wujiang's hatred for Chu Xiu had reached its peak, and he wanted nothing more than to swallow him alive. As soon as she said this, the surrounding warriors were all horrified. It turned out that this matter was really instigated by someone in the dark. As soon as she said this, she saw Chu Xiu's gaze instantly turn into an abyss, completely pulling her spirit into it. Previously, there were people who said that Chu Xiu's reputation in Eastern Qi was even greater than his reputation in Northern Yan and Guangzhou. After this incident, everyone could almost confirm this point. After killing Feng Wuling, Chu Xiu was already somewhat exhausted. Chu Xiu threw Lin Nani's corpse to the side and said indifferently, "I only said not to destroy your Lin clan, but I didn't say not to kill you." Feng Wuling's sword finger had blasted a bloody hole in Chu Xiu's ribs, but there was sword aura entering his body and entrenched in Chu Xiu's meridians, tearing them apart continuously. It would probably take some time for it to be cleared. After saying this, Chu Xiu's figure slowly left the long street and walked out of River Sun Prefecture. She could not believe that Chu Xiu had killed her without even listening to a word from her. Did Chu Xiu not know her identity? Xiahou Wujiang. Of course, what made them even more horrified was Chu Xiu's attitude. When Lin Nani saw that Chu Xiu did not speak, He thought that Chu Xiu did not believe him. Lin Nani hurriedly said, "What I said is true." Xiahou Wujiang's maidservant, Chan, is observing this from that restaurant. Therefore, after receiving the news, Xiahou Wujiang did not care about the strength displayed by Chu Xiu, nor did he care about the dead Feng Wuling. Right now, he could not wait to immediately cut Chu Xiu into 1,000 pieces. While Chu Xiu was recuperating, news of what happened in River Sun Prefecture also spread, and it immediately caused a stir in the Eastern Qi martial arts circle. Since they wanted to kill Chu Xiu, they had naturally studied Chu Xiu's information. Whether it was during the period of the Blue Dragon Society or the period of the Guanzhong torture room, it was not the first time that Chu Xiu had destroyed an entire family and clan. He would really do what he said. This time, they were actually played like monkeys and came here to seek death from Chu Xiu. How could they not be angry? Chu Xiu killed such a beautiful woman just like that. He was really cruel and merciless. River Sun Prefecture was not a place to recuperate, and Chu Xiu's current injuries could no longer support him on his journey. Therefore, Chu Xiu forced himself to find a deserted mountain, blasted a cave, and temporarily recuperated in it. They were the ones who brought Chan Er's body back. It was precisely because Chu Xiu said that as long as they brought Chan Er's body back to the Xiahou clan, they would definitely be rewarded. That was why they made this trip. Therefore, Chu Xiu previously guessed that it might be the crown prince or the second prince who did it. They had the reason and the ability to cause such a big movement in such a short period of time. This woman was Xiahou Wujiang's person, but in the end, Chu Xiu killed her just like that. He didn't even give her a chance to say a word. One could imagine how Chu Xiu's attitude towards Xiahou Wujiang and the Xiahou clan was. He really wasn't afraid of fighting to the death with the Xiahou clan. Just as his words left his mouth, Xiahou Wujiang waved his hand. In an instant, 2 beams of golden light poured into the bodies of these 2 people. With a loud explosion, the heads of these 2 people directly exploded from the stellar energy imbued with powerful psyche. Chu Xiu flung the blood off his saber, pointed at Chan's body, and said indifferently, "If any of you have the time, send her body to the Xiahou clan. Xiahou Wujiang will give you a lot of money. Also, help me pass a message to Xiahou Wujiang. Since he wants to play, then I, Chu Xiu, will play with him to the end. Let's see who can play the other to death in the end." The Yu Maiden Sword mantra was powerful. As long as one comprehended its essence, the might of its sword Dao was simply beyond imagination. However, it was useless to be angry. The other party was the most outstanding genius of this generation of the Nansong Xiahou clan. Even if these poor wandering martial artists, were played by him, they could only endure it. How could they go and find Xiahou Wujiang to ask for an explanation? However, Chu Xiu couldn't show the slightest bit of weakness. Otherwise, he couldn't be sure if someone would hit him when he was down. The headless body fell to the ground. Perhaps it was only at the moment before they died that they knew why no one fought with them over it. Who would fight over something that was sending themselves to death? Chapter 320. Xiahou Wujiang's reputation in the Xiahou clan wasn't very good. Everyone knew that this young master was narrow-minded and had a bad temper. Normally, they would hide from Xiahou Wujiang, not to mention at a time like this. So when Xiahou Wujiang was furious, the servants of the Xiahou clan all hid far away, for fear that they would be like those 2 idiots and give Xiahou Wujiang a chance to vent his anger. At this time, the door of the courtyard was opened, and Xiahou Wujiang turned around and scolded, "Get out!" But before he could scold, he forcibly swallowed it back, because the middle-aged man in a brocade robe who pushed open the door was the clan leader of the Xiahou clan and also Xiahou Wujiang's father, Godlingyun Xiahou Zhen. This generation of the Xiahou clan was full of heroes. Xiahou Zhen's aptitude was mediocre when he was young, and he wasn't valued at all. He only stepped into the innate realm in his 20s, which was considered fast compared to other martial artists, but in the Xiahou clan, it could only be said to be mediocre. But after stepping into the innate realm, Xiahou Zhen amazed everyone with a single brilliant feat. It was as if he had no bottlenecks, and he crossed the 5th level of the Qi-controlling realm all the way to become a martial arts master. Moreover, he also displayed his incomparably skilled skills, as if he was crushing all his opponents at that time, and became the clan leader of the Xiahou clan. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang's appearance, Xiahou Zhen said indifferently, "What, can't afford to lose? Are you going to do it yourself?" Before Xiahou Wujiang could speak, he saw Xiahou Zhen's gaze instantly turn gloomy. "What did I teach you back then? If you don't kill a snake, you will be harmed. If you want to deal with someone, you either don't make a move, or if you make a move, you must completely defeat the other party in one blow. But what about you? You always do things with a joking mind, and you don't put anyone in your eyes. Do you really think you're invincible in the younger generation? Or do you think that my Xiahou clan is the former Kunlun devil cult that can suppress the world, and you don't put anyone in your eyes?" Xiahou Wujiang was just about to defend himself when Xiahou Zhen shouted, "You still dare to quibble?" Xiahou Wujiang's mouth moved. He was scolded without saying a word. If he really dared to defend himself, Xiahou Zhen would probably directly slap him. With a cold snort, Xiahou Zhen said, "Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're too talented, and you've been too successful since you were young. This has also led you to look down on everyone. I warned you when you offended Mo Tianlin because of that girl from the Luo family. After all, Mo Tianlin is a disciple of the Mo family of Jianghu. Mo Tianlin is inferior to you now, but what about in the future?" Although some people were not your match in a direct confrontation, if they wanted to hit you while you were down, they would definitely bring you big trouble. Chu Xiu's ranking on the Longhu roll is above yours. After the Divine Armament meeting, he became the most outstanding disciple of the Guanzhong Punishment Hall's younger generation, and Guan Xiu thought highly of him. He is now the Guanzhong Torture Room's patrol inspector, and he will be the torture officer in the future. How do you know that he won't become the hall master of the Guanzhong Torture Room in the future? Because of your actions, you will offend a big shot of the Guanzhong Torture Room in the future, and cause our Xiahou clan to have a grudge with the Guanzhong Torture Room. After saying so much, you are good in every way, and you are qualified to be the future heir of our Xiahou clan. But there is one thing that is your weakness, and that is arrogance. It's not a problem for ordinary people to be arrogant, but as the heir of the Xiahou clan, one of the 9 great clans, arrogance will kill you. Xiahou Zhen's words made Xiahou Wujiang break out in a cold sweat. Normally, he would not take Xiahou Zhen's words to heart, but now, combined with the matter of Chu Xiu, Xiahou Wujiang also found that he was indeed a little arrogant this time. He did not regard Chu Xiu as an opponent, and he only wanted to teach him a lesson. But the result was self-defeating. Chan was dead, and so was Feng Wuling. Not only did he fail to accomplish his task, but he also completely formed a grudge with Chu Xiu. It could be said that he suffered a double loss and did not get any benefits. Xiahou Wujiang said in a low voice, "Then, father, what should we do now?" Xiahou Zhen snorted coldly and said, "You have the nerve to ask me what to do? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you've caused this time? You secretly instigated the warriors of Eastern Qi to make a move against Chu Xiu. Although the ones who were affected were those rogue warriors, and there were no real big shots, it also affected the reputation of the Xiahou clan. Now that you have made a move, the news has probably spread to the Guanzhong Torture Room. If you dare to make a move again, it will be like slapping the face of the Guanzhong Torture Room and then throwing it into the mud and stepping on it. At that time, I guess Guan Xiu will personally come to the Xiahou clan to ask for an explanation. If you can face Chu Xiu squarely and kill him in one go, then the trouble will only be temporary, and I will help you deal with it. But in the end, you failed, and instead let Chu Xiu show off his power. Then this trouble will be long-term. At least for now, you can't touch Chu Xiu anymore. Also, the Yu Palace is also a problem. You really have the guts to dare to recruit people like Feng Wuling. Even I don't know about this matter. It's not like you didn't see how the Yu Palace chased after Feng Wuling in the past few years. After this matter, although Feng Wuling is dead, the Yu Palace has already come to the door and wants the Xiahou clan to give them an explanation. After all, those women are not big-hearted. Your matter this time has already caused the elders to be very dissatisfied. From today onwards, you will go to the ancestral hall to cultivate in seclusion. Without my permission, you are not allowed to see anyone, and you are not allowed to take half a step out of the ancestral hall. After saying that, Xiahou Zhen snorted coldly and turned to leave. In fact, Xiahou Zhen was not so angry in his heart. This matter might be a good thing for Xiahou Wujiang. Xiahou Zhen had been quiet for a long time, and his state of mind and potential had been polished to perfection. This was why he could amaze the world with a brilliant feat and catch up from behind. On the other hand, his son was the exact opposite. He was born a genius and had never suffered any setbacks or hardships in his life. This also led to the defect of his arrogant character. If the matter of Chu Xiu could make Xiahou Wujiang reflect thoroughly and change this bad habit, it might be a good thing. The Battle of River Sun Prefecture caused a lot of noise in Eastern Qi, but in the end, it was still suppressed by the Xiahou clan. Anyway, Chu Xiu did not die in the end, and the Guanzhong torture room could not cause trouble for the Xiahou clan with great fanfare just for Chu Xiu. As for the Yunnu Palace, the Xiahou clan also used some unknown method to settle the matter. In short, the matter was temporarily peaceful. Half a month later, Chu Xiu also walked out of the cave where he cultivated in seclusion. Squinting at the sun above his head, Chu Xiu's face was still pale at this time. Although his injuries were healed, his vitality was not so easy to recover. This time, the injuries Chu Xiu suffered were also a little serious, so after returning to the Guanzhong torture room, he also had to continue to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, so that he could completely recover his vitality, and also try to break through the 5 qis collecting in Origin Realm. After coming out of seclusion, Chu Xiu also specially inquired about the matter regarding the Xiahou clan. After learning that Xiahou Wujiang was grounded and that the Xiahou clan had completely suppressed the disturbance, Chu Xiu also understood that this matter should be Xiahou Wujiang's own decision, and the Xiahou clan did not participate in it. Otherwise, if the Xiahou clan wanted to kill him, Chu Xiu would not have escaped so easily, and the Xiahou clan would not have let go so easily either. Just as Chu Xiu was preparing to return to the Guanzhong torture room, just as he appeared in the prefecture government, someone took the initiative to come to the door, and this person was something that Chu Xiu did not expect. The person who came turned out to be the Guangdong torturer of the Guanzhong torture room, Million Swords Flow, Shao Yi. Seeing Shao Yi coming, Chu Xiu could not help but ask curiously, "Why are you here, Lord Shao?" The corner of Shao Yi's mouth had a faint smile, and he said, "How could the Guanzhong torture room not know that you caused such a big mess in Eastern Qi? You are the most outstanding young disciple of the Guanzhong torture room of this generation. If the Guanzhong torture room did not even have the slightest bit of response, it would be a little too much. In order to prevent the Xiahou clan from making another move, I came to receive you, but who knew that you would hide yourself? I have been looking for you for many days, and only when someone said that you had appeared here, did I rush over." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Thank you, Lord Shao, for your help." At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something and asked, "Lord Shao, did the Hall Master send you this time?" Chu Xiu was a little puzzled, because Shao Yi did not seem to have any relationship with him. If someone had come, it should have been Wei Juduan, who was his superior. Chu Xiu vaguely guessed something, and he could not help but sneer in his heart. Shao Yi was stunned, but then he smiled and said, "It is said that you are not on good terms with your superior, Wei Juduan, so I can't be bothered to cover for him. The Hall Master said in front of the 4 of us that he was going to send someone to receive you, so this person was indeed sent by Wei Juduan. However, the older one gets, the more afraid they are of death. That old fellow Wei Juduan was probably worried that the Xiahou clan would continue to make a move, so he pretended that he did not understand the Hall Master's intentions. Thus, the Hall Master could only send me, who asked me to be so free during this period of time." When Shao Yi revealed the matter, Chu Xiu was actually not angry. In any case, he and Wei Juduan had completely fallen out because of the Wei and Zhang clans. However, he really did not expect that Wei Juduan would dare to play such a trick in front of Guan Xiyu. He reckoned that his position in Guan Xiyu's heart would definitely plummet. After all, as a superior, Wei Juduan had even made excuses to save his subordinate. One could imagine what he would do in the face of the Guanzhong torture room's crisis. It was fine to have some selfish motives and play some tricks, but when it came to the Guanzhong torture room's reputation, Wei Juduan actually dared to do such a thing. He really did not know what was good for him. Of course, it was also possible that Wei Juduan knew that he was about to retire, so a dead pig was not afraid of boiling water. So what if Guan Xiu had a good impression of him? Could she still keep him in the Guanzhong torture room? Chapter 321. Chu Xiu didn't continue asking about Wei Juduan. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Xiao Yi, and some things weren't easy to talk about. However, Xiao Yi was very talkative. He patted Chu Xiu's shoulder and said, "Xiahou Wujiang schemed against you this time. Although it's a personal grudge between the two of you, Xiahou Wujiang's methods are a bit too dirty. You're from the Guanzhong torture room, and Xiahou Wujiang slandered you. That's the same as slandering the Guanzhong torture room. However, although Master Guan wants to interfere in this matter, he can't do so. The Guanzhong torture room has been dealing with internal affairs all these years, so it's not that famous in the pugilistic world. At least, it's not as famous as the Xiahou clan, which is one of the top 9 aristocratic families. In addition, the Xiahou clan stopped in time, so Master Guan is prepared to let this matter go." Chu Xiu nodded. He didn't feel that it was unfair. Big forces were like this. They were thinking about giving in and compromising with each other. Moreover, he had heard that even the Yunnu Palace had appeared to demand an explanation from Madame Xiahou, but they had been dealt with by Madame Xiahou. In that case, even if he went to the Guanzhong punishment hall, it would be useless. At this time, Xiao Yi suddenly stared at Chu Xiu and said, "To be honest, I kind of want to fight with you now. You know my background. I used to be a disciple of the Sitting Sword Hut, and Feng Wuling's inheritance is in the Yunnu Palace. Back when the Yunnu Palace was chasing after him, I wanted to find a chance to fight with him and have a taste of the Yunnu sword. It was very unpleasant to fight with those women from the Yunnu Palace. Now that a man has finally come, I've wanted to try it for a long time. I didn't expect Feng Wuling to be killed by you once he appeared after disappearing for so many years. Now I want to fight with you." Chu Xiu smiled bitterly and said, "Don't tease me, Lord Xiao. Don't you know how strong I am? Feng Wuling did die in my hands, but I won that battle by sheer luck. There was a loophole in Feng Wuling's heart, and it was a huge loophole. In that battle, I completely tore apart the hole in his mental state, and only then was I able to seize the last chance to kill him. If Feng Wuling was at his peak, I wouldn't have the slightest confidence in killing him. In fact, I don't even know if I could escape alive from Feng Wuling." Xiao Yi smiled and said, "Don't be humble. Being able to find loopholes is also a kind of ability. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to find any loopholes even if they searched for all the detailed information on Feng Wuling. Even if they found them, they wouldn't have the ability to do so." Chu Xiu cupped his fists and said, "Lord Xiao is overpraising me." After exchanging a few more pleasantries, the two of them set off, ready to return to the Guanzhong torture room. Xiao Yi was a little lazy and talkative, always taking the initiative to talk to others. However, he got along well with Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu was also from the Forgetting Sword Hut, one of the 5 major sword sects, and had a unique understanding of martial arts. Although Chu Xiu was only at the 3-flower realm, his combat strength was extremely shocking. He could have a good chat with Xiao Yi on this point. Of course, this was also due to Chu Xiu's killing of Feng Wuling. Otherwise, Xiao Yi wouldn't have been interested in talking so much with an ordinary 3-flower realm martial artist. Nothing happened on the way back to the Guanzhong torture room. Since the Xiahou clan had already decided to completely suppress the matter, they naturally wouldn't come out and cause trouble again. After returning to the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu was surrounded by the martial artists who came and went from the Guanzhong torture room. The Guanzhong torture room had been quiet for so many years, and there were actually not many people who could really make a name for themselves in the martial world. For example, the torture officers and the leaders of the Guanzhong torture room were actually not weak. For example, Xiao Yi and Si Ming. In Chu Xiu's opinion, their strength was definitely not weaker than experts at the level of Mr. Liu and the Heavenly Sin branch leader. However, they were very low-key and unknown in the martial world. In the end, Chu Xiu, a disciple of the younger generation, made such a big name for himself in the martial world. This was somewhat unexpected to many. Of course, Most of the martial artists in the Guanzhong torture room looked at Chu Xiu with kind eyes. No matter how bad Chu Xiu's reputation was outside and how many people scolded him, at the very least, Chu Xiu was a member of the Guanzhong torture room. He also represented the Guanzhong torture room in the martial world. This also made the constables of the Guanzhong torture room feel proud. As for those who were jealous, although there were people, they were still in the minority. After all, Chu Xiu's current achievements were a little too great. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they should know how big the gap between them and Chu Xiu was. Jealousy? It was basically a joke to say it out loud. Xiao Yi brought Chu Xiu to the main hall to report. Not only was Guan Xiu there, but the other 3 torture officers were also there. Xiao Yi walked into the hall and said with a smile, cupping his hands, "Hall Master, I was fortunate enough to not let you down. I went through a lot of trouble to bring Chu Xiu back. I completed such a big task. You should at least give me some reward, right?" Guan Xiu knew Xiao Yi's character. When he heard this, he only said lightly, "Some people from the Miaojiang of West Chu want to use the land of Guanzhong to open up a trade route to northern Yen. They are going back and forth with the Guanzhong torture room. I will reward you to negotiate with them. How about that?" When Xiao Yi heard this, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Forget it. Those guys from the Miaojiang are famous for being difficult. I don't want to deal with them." Xiao Yi joked, but the atmosphere in the hall was a bit strange. As Chu Xiu's superior, Wei Judwan should have gone up to greet Chu Xiu when he returned. However, he didn't say a word. He looked at Chu Xiu with deep fear. Previously, because of the Wei family's matter, Wei Judwan had already fallen out with Chu Xiu. But at that time, Chu Xiu had the general trend. Even though he was Chu Xiu's superior, he couldn't even think about punishing Chu Xiu. Therefore, the matter could only be left unsettled, allowing Chu Xiu to grasp the business lifeline of the entire Guangxi region. Wei Judwan could do nothing about it. Originally, Wei Judwan was prepared to wait for Chu Xiu's general trend to dissipate before teaching Chu Xiu a lesson. He wanted him to know what it meant to respect his superiors and subordinates. However, he didn't expect that Chu Xiu would become even more famous after going out. There were even rumors that he had killed a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. This made Wei Judwan extremely fearful. He also put away the thought of teaching Chu Xiu a lesson. However, he was still unwilling to concede to a subordinate like Chu Xiu when he was about to retire. This could be considered an obsession of Wei Judwan. Therefore, even in front of Guan Xiu, he still acted like this. He couldn't even be bothered to put on an act. As for Yin Batong, ever since Chu Xiu entered the hall, he had been glaring at him fiercely. At this time, he even stood up and coldly snorted. "Chu Xiu, today, the hall master and the other disciplinary officers are here. I want to ask you, how did my disciple Wang Qianping die? If you don't give me an explanation, this matter will definitely not end." Yin Batong had endured this matter for a long time. Cheng Zhouhai and the others had returned safely. They had even brought back merits and benefits. In the end, his disciple Wang Qianping had died in Eastern Qi. How could Yin Batong tolerate this? Cheng Zhouhai's position was absolutely neutral. He didn't side with Wang Qianping, nor did he side with Chu Xiu. He just recounted what had happened. It was true that Wang Qianping had been killed by a phaseless demon sect martial artist. However, Wang Qianping had a conflict with Chu Xiu before. In the end, just after the conflict had ended, Wang Qianping had died. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? In any case, Yin Batong didn't believe it. When Chu Xiu heard this, a hint of ridicule appeared on his face. He said, "What Lord Yin said is interesting. Wang Qianping didn't die in my hands. Why do you need an explanation from me? On the battlefield, a moment of distraction could easily lead to death. Wang Qianping was too slow. Who could he blame when he was killed by a phaseless demon sect martial artist? If you ask me, you should blame yourself, Lord Yin. Lord Yin, your nickname is the Shadowless Flying Dragon. Your speed can be said to be the fastest in my Guanzhong torture room. In the end, your disciple's speed is so slow. Could it be that you, Lord Yin, held back when you were teaching your disciple? Could it be that you were afraid that your disciple would starve to death? The current Chu Xiu wasn't the Chu Xiu of the past. He had the power to kill a unity of heaven and man expert. Even if he wasn't in existence at the level of the disciplinary officer, he still had the guts to challenge Yin Batong and the other martial artists. Yin Butong's face turned gloomy when he heard Chu Xiu's words. He said coldly, "Chu Xiu, how dare you be so impudent in front of the hall master? Do you still have any respect? Wang Qianping had a conflict with you before he died. In the end, he died the next day. How can there be such a coincidence in this world?" Chu Xiu spread his hands and said, "Who can say for sure what the heavens do? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame that Wang Qianping's bad luck and your poor teaching. You have to know that there are many martial artists who have conflicts with me, Chu Xiu. If everyone's death is blamed on me, then wouldn't I, Chu Xiu, be a god of death? Moreover, that Wang Qianping died in the hands of the phaseless demon sex demon. In the end, you pushed the blame on me. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that I, Chu Xiu, have colluded with the demon? Lord Yin, sometimes, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. I am someone from the Guanzhong torture room. You slander me for colluding with the demon. Isn't that the same as splashing dirty water on the Guanzhong torture room? There are some words that you have to think carefully before you speak." After Chu Xiu finished speaking, Yin Butong's face was already red with anger. When had he ever been talked back to like this by a junior martial artist? Taking a step forward, Yin Butong's entire body erupted with gangqi. Even if it was in front of the Guanzhong torture room, he had to teach Chu Xiu a lesson. Don't think that just because you killed a Unity of Heaven realm martial artist, Chu Xiu's strength can really be compared to a Unity of Heaven realm martial artist. Who knows what kind of crafty tricks you used in the battle? However, before he could make a move, a figure had already blocked in front of him. This person was actually Chu Simo. This was something that no one present had expected. Chapter 322. Among the torture officers in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Simo had always kept the lowest profile. This was related to his status. After all, he was of the lowest status among all the torture officers in the Guanzhong torture room and the head of the narcotics department. Moreover, he was of a different race, so it was inevitable that he would be looked down upon and even discriminated against. Therefore, Chu Simo kept an extremely low profile most of the time in the Guanzhong torture room. If no one provoked him, he would not take the initiative to provoke them either. Chu Xiu's superior, Wei Juduan, did not care about this matter. Xiao Yi, who had been walking with Chu Xiu the entire time and had some friendly relations with him, did not care either. In the end, it was Chu Simo who took the initiative to stand up for him. This slightly stunned everyone present. Chu Xiu's lips curled into an imperceptible smile. He knew why Chu Simo stood up for him. He had pulled Chu Xiaoda, a warrior with mediocre aptitude, into the 9-branch division for Chu Simo. Now, it seemed that he had made the right move. Chu Xiaoda indeed had a special place in Chu Simo's heart. He was actually able to make Chu Simo side with Chu Xiu in such a public situation. Yin Batong said fiercely, "Chu Simo, what do you want?" Chu Simo said indifferently, "Nothing much. I just want to remind you that this is the Guanzhong torture room. The hall master is still here. You, a dignified torture officer, are making a scene here and even attacking a junior. You might be shameless, but we torture officers like you do." Yin Butong's face darkened. He immediately pointed at Chu Simo and began to curse. However, at this moment, Guan Xiu finally spoke. He snorted coldly and said, "All right, shut up. It's already over. There's no evidence, so there's no need to pursue this matter." Chu Xiu did not leave any traces behind, and the most important thing in the Guanzhong torture room was evidence. In addition, with Chu Xiu's current status, so what if Yin Batong was the torture officer? He could not casually smear Chu Xiu's name. Seeing that Guan Xiu had already spoken, Yin Batong could only snort coldly and keep quiet. Guan Xiu said in a deep voice, "Chu Xiu, Qing Zhouhai and company have already explained everything. However, you're the leader of this case. Tell them again." Chu Xiu nodded and repeated the matter to Guan Xiu. Of course, what Chu Xiu said was what he had modified. It was what others could see. For example, why did Chu Xiu insist on killing Qiu Dongmao, even to the point of ruining the Jiangdong 5 heroes? Chu Xiu could totally push the blame to Qiu Dongmao's poisoning of Qiu Zhenxing. He was doing it for the sake of the Guanzhong torture room's reputation. He had to be thorough when doing things. The Guanzhong torture room could not afford to make any mistakes when handling a case. However, everyone present secretly shook their heads when they heard this. Did Chu Xiu look like a selfless person? Anyway, no matter how they looked at it, they did not believe it. Other than that, they really couldn't think of any other reason. Although the 5 heroes of the River East were famous, they were all lone cultivators. To put it simply, killing them would only bring them trouble, but it would be of no value at all. Qiu Dongmao was just an illegitimate child, so he was also of no value. Apart from Qiu Zhenxing's case, they really could not find any suspicious points for Chu Xiu to kill them. Guan Xiu nodded and said, "Okay, you can leave now. I'll get someone to send the reward for this mission to Guanxi. You're still injured, so go back and recuperate first." After all, Guan Xiu was a martial Dao master. She could almost see the injuries on Chu Xiu's body at a glance. Chu Xiu also cupped his hands and said, "Yes, Hall Master." Then Chu Xiu followed everyone out of the door. After leaving the main hall, Wei Judwan's slightly cold voice sounded behind Chu Xiu. "Chu Xiu, I really underestimated you. You can actually fight to death with an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. What method did you use? Was it the strongest hidden weapon of the Qianji sect or the strange poison of the 5 poison sect?" Although many people saw Chu Xiu kill Feng Wuling, most of the people in the pugilistic world still did not believe it after hearing the news. They still believed that Chu Xiu used some cheating methods during the fight, such as hidden weapons or poison. Only these things that could not be guarded against could allow people to kill people of a higher level at will. Although Chu Xiu's use of the heaven sun gazing at air was indeed a little suspicious, it was also part of Chu Xiu's strength. If there were no loopholes in one's body, it would be useless for Chu Xiu to use the heaven's sun gazing at air. Wei Judwan was such a person. He did not believe that Chu Xiu could rely on his own strength to kill an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. Chu Xiu turned around and smiled. The pugilistic world only cares about the results, not the process. I'm standing here, and Feng Wuling has already become a corpse. It's that simple. Does Lord Wei still want to spar with me, your subordinate, to see if I have the strength to fight against an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm? Even an idiot could hear the sarcasm in Chu Xiu's words. Wei Judwan's face immediately darkened. He took a step forward, lowered his voice, and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, do you still remember that you're my subordinate? Don't forget, I'm still the Guanxi torture officer. The rules of the Guanzhong torture room are the most important. Those who offend their superiors have never had a good ending." Chu Xiu said lightly, "I've never wanted to offend you, Lord. Think about it carefully. Ever since I joined you, I've given you many benefits. As long as you don't force me, I naturally won't make things difficult for you. I won't offend others if they don't offend me. Lord, you're going to retire soon. Can't you just enjoy your days of power in peace?" With that, Chu Xiu turned around and left. However, Wei Judwan, who was behind him, had a strong sense of fear in his eyes. Previously, Wei Judwan had misjudged Chu Xiu, but this time, he would not be wrong. This Chu Xiu was definitely an extremely ambitious person. If Wei Judwan did not touch him, he was afraid that all his power in the Guanxi area would be completely taken away. At that time, what difference would it be from him retiring early? Listening to Chu Xiu's tone, it was obvious that when Chu Xiu had yet to gain a foothold in the Guanxi area, he had always addressed him as Lord. Now, however, it had changed to Lord, and he was on equal footing with Wei Judwan. From this, one could see Chu Xiu's attitude. However, Wei Judwan really could not think of any way to touch Chu Xiu. There was no reason, nor was there an opportunity. Therefore, Wei Judwan could only snort coldly, turn around, and leave. On the other side, Chu Xiu did not care about Wei Judwan. In fact, what he said just now was true. During this period of time, Chu Xiu would be busy cultivating in seclusion, trying to break through to the 5 Qis origin realm. As long as Wei Juduan did not provoke him, he naturally could not be bothered to provoke Wei Juduan. Of course, whether Wei Juduan believed him or not depended on him. Just as Chu Xiu was thinking about these things, a few people walked over from the opposite side. The person in the center had a graceful figure and was incomparably charming. It was Guan Xiyu's wife, Mei Qinglian. There were a few maids by her side. They had probably followed her out shopping and had just returned. The instant he saw Mei Qinglian, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. His aura began to become indistinct and unfathomable. He used the heaven's suns gazing at air. At this moment, in Chu Xiu's eyes, Mei Qinglian was no longer a delicate and charming woman. Her entire body was flashing with layers of black threads. They were so dense that they even enveloped her entire body. With Chu Xiu's current cultivation of the heaven's suns gazing at air, he couldn't see any flaws in Mei Qinglian at all. He couldn't even see the trajectories of some of the threads. Chu Xiu's expression didn't change. He put away the heaven's suns gazing at air, and Mei Qinglian seemed to sense something. She walked straight towards Chu Xiu. She stood less than a foot away from him, and a thick but not cloying fragrance wafted over. Pressing her lips against Chu Xiu's ear, Mei Qinglian whispered softly, "Official Chu, what did you see?" Chu Xiu took a step back and said with a faint smile, "I saw Madame's beauty." Mei Qinglian covered her mouth and laughed. Official Chu really knows how to talk. Chu Xiu looked straight into Mei Qinglian's eyes and said, "I only know how to speak the truth." It was hard to tell what Mei Qinglian was thinking, but she still took a step back. She waved her hand and walked into the main hall with her maidservants. Chu Xiu stood where he was without a change in expression. At this moment, he was sure that there was something wrong with Mei Qinglian. Even the huge change in the Guanzhong torture room in the original plot might have something to do with Mei Qinglian. But what did that have to do with him? Mei Qinglian and Chu Xiu had no conflict, nor did she threaten Chu Xiu's interests. Why would Chu Xiu take the initiative to cause trouble? He said that he only saw Mei Qinglian's beauty, and that was the truth. As for whether Mei Qinglian would affect the interests of the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu couldn't care less. He had no loyalty to the Guanzhong torture room. To be precise, Chu Xiu would not be loyal to anyone or any force. He only needed the loyalty of others. After returning to the Jianghu Prefecture's Inspector Hall, Du Guangzhong, Ghost Hand King, and others specially gathered in the Jianghu Prefecture to welcome Chu Xiu. At this time, Chu Xiu's people were not only concentrated in the Jianghu Prefecture, but also in all the prefectures in Guangxi, except for the prefectures directly under Weijiu. It could be said that the business lifeline of the entire Guangxi was in the hands of Chu Xiu. The other inspectors of Guangxi had no choice but to acquiesce to this behavior. Of the Guangxi inspectors, Yang Ling was secretly one of Chu Xiu's people. Jiang Taoran, Sidu Xing, and Fang Hua did not dare to provoke Chu Xiu. The remaining Wei Changling of the Nine Plains Wei family was dissatisfied with Chu Xiu's actions. But he had already been taught a lesson by Chu Xiu. Even the Nine Plains Wei family did not have a good time at Chu Xiu's hands. What could he use to challenge Chu Xiu? So right now, Chu Xiu's people controlled almost half of Guangxi. In some places, their words were more effective than the local inspectors. Chapter 323. Chu Xiu had made a name for himself in Jianghu. As his subordinates, Du Guangzhong and the others naturally felt honored. Moreover, during this period of time, almost no one dared to provoke them in the entire Guangxi area. Their status was far higher than that of the Jianghu arresters in other prefectures. Did the Wei and Zhang families do anything during this period of time? Chu Xiu asked. Du Guangzhong shook his head and said, "My lord, you had the upper hand previously, and the Wei and Zhang families had already suffered a loss. How would they dare to challenge you now? Therefore, during this period of time, the Wei and Zhang families have been very quiet and did not provoke us. Now that you are back, I think they will not dare to do anything." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "That's good. In fact, the Wei and Zhang families will not be able to do anything because they are only Jianghu forces in the Guanzhong area, and the Guanzhong area belongs to the Guanzhong torture room. No matter what they do, it will be useless." The one we really need to be careful of is that old thing, Wei Juduan. He is now about to retire, and he doesn't even care about Hall Master Guan's impression of him. This kind of person will not bring me any benefits, but will instead cause me some trouble. In front of everyone present, Chu Xiu called Wei Juduan old thing, but no one present found it strange. They were all Chu Xiu's confidants, and Wei Juduan was an old man who was about to retire. Even if Chu Xiu asked them to scold Wei Juduan, they would dare to scold him. After giving a few instructions to the people present and holding a banquet in the evening, Chu Xiu directly went into seclusion. At present, Chu Xiu had gone through several fierce battles in a row. He had accumulated a lot of strength, but at the same time, his vitality was greatly damaged. It was indeed time for him to go into seclusion and rest. Moreover, Chu Xiu felt that he had accumulated enough. With the 5 elemental regeneration pill he obtained from Eastern Qi, he could try to break through the 5 Qis collecting origin stage. Although he was not 100% sure, Chu Xiu was at least 90% sure. After that, Chu Xiu would try to further comprehend the heavens sun gazing at air skill. This would require a certain amount of time. Speaking of which, Chu Xiu didn't really like this kind of closed-door training. He preferred to comprehend and break through in battle. Although it was dangerous, it was much faster. However, the path of martial arts required too many sacrifices, and perseverance was one of them. In order to break through bottlenecks, some martial artists in the Jianghu would even choose to go into seclusion for several years or even decades. If he succeeded, his strength would increase greatly. If he failed, he would become a skeleton in a grave. During the closed-door training, it took Chu Xiu a full month to recover his primordial qi. When his primordial qi was almost restored, Chu Xiu took the 5 elemental regeneration pill and began to refine it. The 5 elemental power of the 5 elemental regeneration pill seeped into Chu Xiu's 5 internal organs, making the 5 elemental power in Chu Xiu's body flourish. It constantly polished the power of his 5 internal organs, making the 5 elements one. This was also a painstaking effort. It would take a certain amount of time to refine the medicinal power and push it to perfection. Finally, it would reach the 5 Qis collecting origin stage. While Chu Xiu was in closed-door training, the outside world seemed very calm. This was especially so in Guanxi. Chu Xiu came back with a powerful aura, which was enough to deter thieves and thieves. Even if some people wanted to cause trouble before, they put away those ideas when Chu Xiu came back. At this time, in a restaurant in Guanxi's Chenzhou Prefecture, Fire Slave was sitting in a corner. He ordered a few dishes and drank wine leisurely. He looked very satisfied. Chu Xiu's subordinates had completely controlled the commercial lifeline of the entire Guanxi. Fire Slave was the one who controlled the Chenzhou Prefecture. Fire Slave was very satisfied with his current life. He could even wake up from his dreams with a smile. In fact, Fire Slave was a very contented person. He had a difficult past. As long as his current life was a little better than before, he would be satisfied. A contented person would be very happy. Fire Slave was very happy now. Fire Slave was a slave of a foreign tribe in the western region. From a slave who was slaughtered at will, he became an assassin of the Blue Dragon Society and controlled the lives of others. Fire Slave was very satisfied with this. From a killer of the Green Dragon Gang who killed all day long, he became a Jianghu arrester of the Guangzhong Punishment Hall. He followed Chu Xiu. Although he was a Jianghu arrester, the inspectors of other prefectures had to treat him politely. He received a lot of salary every month, and he didn't need to fight a few times. He had a lot of time to practice, and he even had time to enjoy life as leisurely as he was now. In the eyes of Fire Slave before, he was living like an immortal. However, although Fire Slave was living like an immortal, it didn't mean that he had slacked off. On the contrary, the more he enjoyed this kind of life, the harder he had to cultivate to maintain this kind of life. Because he knew that all this was brought to him by strength. Without strength, he couldn't escape the Western region, join the Blue Dragon Society, and wouldn't be valued by Chu Xiu as much as he was now. Just as Fire Slave was leisurely drinking and letting his imagination run wild, a few people at a table not far away caught his attention. Those people were young warriors in brocade robes. They looked like young masters from aristocratic families. They weren't strong, but they weren't weak either. They were all in the Xiantian realm. One of the young masters in a blue brocade robe asked the young master in white, "Brother Wei, you haven't come out all this time. But are you grounded by your family's old man?" The young master in white was a direct descendant of the Nine Plains Wei family, Wei Chen. Although he wasn't the son of the family head, Wei Mok, he was the son of an elder with real power in the Wei family. His status in the Wei family wasn't low. Hearing this, he just snorted coldly and said, "Grounded my ass. This young master didn't do anything wrong. What right does he have to ground me? It's just that the old ancestor recently ordered us Wei family disciples to keep a low profile. It's not like you don't know how timid my old man is. He insisted that I stay in the Wei family to cultivate. I've been stifled to death recently." The young master in blue smiled and said, "Could it be because of the Jianghu prefecture's patrol inspector, Chu Xiu? The news that your Wei family suffered a setback at the hands of Chu Xiu has spread throughout the entire Guanxi. It's normal for you to be more careful now." Hearing this, Wei Chen's expression changed. He slammed his wine cup on the table and said coldly, "Han Mu, if you don't know how to speak, then don't speak. What do you mean the Wei family suffered a setback? If it weren't for the disciplinary officer, Chu Xiu would have been crippled by our Wei family. Since Lord Disciplinary Officer has spoken to settle this matter, my Wei family naturally couldn't be bothered to refute Lord Disciplinary Officer's request. Thus, we reluctantly moved to another location to continue our business. Otherwise, do you think my Wei family would so easily hand over our business to Chu Xiu?" Although Wei Chen was a bit of a playboy and his reputation in the Wei family wasn't good, as a Wei family disciple, Wei Chen still knew that everything he had came from the Wei family. Therefore, Wei Chen was very protective of the Wei family's reputation outside. No one could slander it. Han Mu smiled and said, "Brother Wei, everyone knows that your Wei family is powerful in the Guanxi. You don't need to emphasize this point again. However, Chu Xiu is really ruthless. They heard that he had first killed the 5 heroes of the River East in Eastern Qi, and then killed those who had wanted to avenge the 5 heroes of the River East. Finally, he had even killed a great master at the unity of heaven and man realm. TSK, that was really something. I heard that after he returned to the Guanzhong torture room, he even dared to talk back to the disciplinary officer Yin Batong in public. It's easy to imagine what Master Wei is thinking. In my opinion, the Guanxi region might belong to someone else in the future. Who knows, it might even be Chu Xiu's. Han Mu's Han family didn't have any conflicts with Chu Xiu. After Chu Xiu took over the Qinzhou prefecture's business, the Han family was one of the first to choose to side with him. They were very adaptable, so he didn't have any ill feelings towards Chu Xiu. However, Wei Chen sneered disdainfully and said, "You think you're invincible just because you killed a few people outside? What a joke. My Wei family has been in the Guanzhong torture room for hundreds of years. Who does that Chu Xiu think he is? How dare he challenge my Wei family? Ridiculous. Rumors are just rumors. If a unity of heaven expert was so easy to kill, how could someone in that realm be called a great expert? For Chu Xiu to be able to win, it's either because he played some tricks, or because his opponent was too useless." Wei Chen hadn't met Chu Xiu before, but that didn't hide his hatred and malice towards Chu Xiu. Just as Wei Chen was about to say something, a figure stood in front of him. Wei Chen was just about to scold when that figure pressed a palm onto the table. A scarlet-red palm force exploded like a violent flame, and it actually burned the entire table into ashes in an instant. The person who suddenly stood out was Huanu. If Wei Chen and the others were here to vent their grievances, it would have been fine. After all, Jianghu constables weren't Imperial Secret Service and didn't need to inquire about everything. However, the problem was that Wei Chen dared to insult Chu Xiu. This was something Huanu couldn't tolerate. Now that Huanu's strength had reached the physical invulnerability realm, his palm energy was even more condensed. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Is official Chu someone you can insult? Huanu said coldly as he looked at Wei Chen. Wei Chen and the others were so frightened that they immediately ran away. Wei Chen pointed at Huanu and said coldly, "Who are you? Tell me your name." Huanu came out to relax today. Naturally, he wouldn't be wearing the Guangzhong torture room uniform. That was why Wei Chen and the others didn't recognize him. As for Han Mu, he was a local power in Qinzhou Prefecture. During this period of time, Huanu had been hanging around Qinzhou Prefecture. He recognized Huanu and knew his temper and character. Huanu was definitely a ruthless person. When he went crazy, he would even hit himself. Don't be fooled by Huanu's harmless and indifferent appearance. When he really flared up, he dared to kill anyone. Chapter 324. Slandering Chu Xiu in public only to be caught red-handed by one of his subordinates, Wei Chen felt a little awkward. However, in his opinion, he hadn't done anything too overboard. All he did was scold Chu Xiu a few times. What was the big deal? Moreover, Wei Chen had never thought that the Wei family had backed down in front of Chu Xiu. He truly believed that the Wei family had only backed down to give Wei Juduan face. Thinking of this, Wei Chen's courage grew. He sneered and said, "You're one of Chu Xiu's subordinates? What? Does Chu Xiu think he's the hall master of the Guangzhong torture room? I can't even scold him anymore? This is the Qinzhou Prefecture, not Chu Xiu's Jianghu Prefecture." Seeing Wei Chen's stubborn appearance, Han Mu and the others subconsciously took a few steps back, distancing themselves from Wei Chen. Of course they could scold Chu Xiu, and there were many people who scolded Chu Xiu in the Jianghu. But the problem was that even if they scolded him, it didn't matter if they scolded him in secret, but if they pointed at Chu Xiu's nose and scolded him to his face, they would be courting death. Although Wei Chen hadn't scolded Chu Xiu to his face, Chu Xiu's subordinates had heard it. Moreover, it was a fire slave who was loyal to Chu Xiu. This matter was probably not going to end well. The fire slave's eyes revealed a cold glint. His loyalty to Chu Xiu was built on the premise that Chu Xiu had given him so many things. At the same time, if he wanted to protect his current position and everything else, he had to display his ability. Wei Chen had insulted Chu Xiu in front of him. If he let this matter go, he would feel sorry for his current position. You want to scold official Chu? Fine, I'll take you back to the Jinzhou Prefecture and let you scold him to your heart's content in front of official Chu. As soon as he finished speaking, the fire slave directly grabbed at Wei Chen. But at this moment, a sword light suddenly fell and blocked the fire slave's path. Wei Chen's eyes lit up. "Uncle Li, save me." Suddenly, a middle-aged warrior appeared in front of Wei Chen with a sword in hand. He was a guest of the Wei family and had the strength of a physical invulnerability expert. He had been specially sent to protect Wei Chen. He was furious that Wei Chen didn't know what was good for him. It was one thing for him to cause trouble in the Wei family, but he didn't even keep his mouth shut outside. However, he was still a direct descendant of the Wei family. If something happened to him, Wei Chen would also suffer. Therefore, Uncle Li cupped his hands and said, "Lord Fire Slave, this child is insensible and has offended Lord Chu Xiu. Please forgive him. Is there a need to make such a big fuss over such a small matter? This brat always came to the Chun State Prefecture to drink with women. My lord once said that people must be responsible for their words and actions. He insulted my lord in front of me. This is not a small matter. Didn't you say that he doesn't know? Fine, hand him to me and let me bring him back to the Jianghu Prefecture. I will teach him a lesson and let him know how to be sensible." Uncle Li's expression changed when he heard the fire slave's words. If Wei Chen was brought back by the fire slave, he would probably lose a layer of skin even if he didn't die. Uncle Li said in a low voice, "Lord Fire Lord, are you really not giving my Wei family any face?" The fire slave's expression instantly changed from smiling to disdain. He spat and said disdainfully, "Your Wei family has no face at all. Didn't your family head Wei Mok come to find trouble with my lord? What happened in the end? In the end, he's still left with his tail between his legs." Uncle Li frowned. He didn't expect Chu Xiu's underlings to not give the Wei family any face. "Young Master Qin, you leave first. I will cover you." In this situation, they had no choice but to fight. Uncle Li turned around and instructed Wei Chen, preparing to have him retreat first. But at this moment, the fire slave sneered, "Leave? None of you can leave." As soon as he finished speaking, the fire slave took the initiative to attack. His body was like a swimming fish, inexplicably strange. Almost in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Uncle Li. Uncle Li also didn't expect the fire slave to be so fast. He subconsciously slashed with the long sword in his hand. A few feet long sword energy danced in the air, trying to stop the fire slave. But when he saw the strength of Uncle Li's earth energy, the fire slave sneered in his heart. This guy looked much older than him. He should have stepped into the physical invulnerability stage many years ago. But when he attacked, the sword energy didn't even reach 10 feet. He was simply trash. The fire slave's palm fell. The red earth energy wasn't released, but condensed in his palm. He actually used the earth energy of his palm to resist Uncle Li's sword energy. With a loud explosion, Uncle Li's sword blasted the fire slave several steps away. However, the long sword in his hand instantly turned red. A strange and evil fire power seeped into Uncle Li's body and burned his meridians. He immediately groaned in pain, and his complexion changed dramatically. At this time, the fire slave rushed forward again and formed a seal with both hands. The fire chi in Uncle Li's body seemed to have a life of its own. While it was burning his meridians, it actually brought along his blood chi. When he was sent flying by the fire slave's palm, the fire chi in his body directly returned to the fire slave's body and took away a part of his blood chi. This caused Uncle Li's complexion to turn deathly pale. The fire slave's cultivation method was inherited from a tribe in the western region. It wasn't considered a demonic cultivation method, but it was extremely evil. When the fire energy seeped into the opponent's body, as long as it wasn't completely consumed by the opponent, it could be retracted. It also carried a part of the opponent's chi and blood. It could be said that the more it fought, the stronger it became. After a few moves, Uncle Li was already seriously injured. At this moment, Wei Chen hadn't reached the door yet. He was already out of time. Uncle Li struggled to stand up, but his eyes were already filled with shock. It was understandable that Chu Xiu had the strength to crush those of the same level. But how could his subordinate be so strong? He had just stepped into the physical invulnerability stage and already had such powerful combat strength? What he didn't know was that the fire slave was from the Blue Dragon Society. It was different from him, who wasn't young but could only be a guest in a small family. Although the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society didn't have the highest realm among those of the same age, their combat strength was higher than most people of the same realm. After all, the Blue Dragon Society trained to kill. If you didn't have the strength to fight multiple people of the same level, why would you be an assassin? You would just be waiting to be killed. I told you, none of you can escape today. The fire slave didn't care about Uncle Li, who was already seriously injured. Instead, he turned around and grabbed Wei Chen, who was about to leave the restaurant. Just as he was about to grab Wei Chen, Jiang Taoren, the inspector of the Qin State Prefecture, suddenly appeared and slammed his palm against the fire slave. The powerful palm force sent the fire slave flying, but Jiang Taoren just casually waved his hand to expel the evil fire from the fire slave's palm force. There was still a huge gap between the three-flower realm and the physical invulnerability stage. The fire slave wasn't Chu Xiu, who dared to fight with people 1 or 2 levels higher than him at any time. Looking at Jiang Taoren, the fire slave said coldly, "Sir Jiang, what do you mean? Do you want to protect this guy who dared to slander official Chu?" Jiang Taoren frowned and said, "This is the Qin State Prefecture's territory. Fire slave, give me some face and let this matter go. If you want to fight, can't you fight somewhere else?" As the inspector of the Qin State Prefecture, Jiang Taoren naturally knew that the fight had begun in the restaurant. In fact, he had already rushed over when he heard that Wei Chen was in conflict with the fire slave. Who knew that when he arrived, Jiang Taoren realized that the situation was more troublesome than he had imagined. The fire slave's attitude was tougher than he had imagined. He didn't want to provoke the 9 Plains Wei family, and he didn't want to provoke Chu Xiu either. As long as these two didn't fight in the Qin State Prefecture, everything would be fine. The fire slave said with a warm smile, "Of course, I have to give face to Sir Jiang." I won't kill him. I just need to bring Wei Chen back. Jiang Taoran's face immediately darkened. This fire slave still wants to kill? He coldly snorted and said, Fire slave, don't play word games with me. You know what I mean. Once we leave the Qin State Prefecture, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't fight in my territory. The fire slave slowly said, Once we leave the Qin State Prefecture, they will all return to the Wei family. If I let them run away, I won't have the face to continue working under official Chu. Not killing this guy is already giving face to Sir Jiang. I must bring Wei Chen back today. The fire slave's attitude was surprisingly tough. At this moment, Wei Chen also knew that he was afraid. He stood behind Jiang Taoran and trembled, hoping that Jiang Taoran could help him stop the fire slave. Jiang Taoran frowned and was about to say something when he heard the fire slave's cold voice. Lord Jiang, you're an inspector, so I'll give you face. If you don't come forward, I'll break his sword and behead him. Now, I will give you face, but I hope that Sir Jiang won't embarrass me. I am just a constable and naturally don't dare to challenge Sir Jiang. However, if I can't bring him back today, then when my master comes out of seclusion, I will report to Sir Jiang and have Sir Jiang discuss this personally. The fire slave's threatening tone immediately made Jiang Taoran's face turn red with anger. A constable from the Jianghu actually dared to speak to him like this? However, Jiang Taoran was a person who could endure and adapt to circumstances. He could now see that the distance between him and Chu Xiu had been completely widened. There was no comparison at all. Moreover, Chu Xiu's murderous nature made him a little afraid. Compared to offending the Wei family, he was more afraid of offending Chu Xiu. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Jiang Taoran could only coldly snort and say, When official Chu comes out of seclusion, I will ask official Chu if he knows that his subordinate is so powerful. After saying this, Jiang Taoran directly turned around and left, leaving behind a dumbfounded Wei Chen. The fire slave still had a faint smile on his face. He wasn't afraid that Jiang Taoran would go to Chu Xiu and complain about him because the fire slave knew Chu Xiu's personality. This person was very protective of his people. Chapter 325. However, it was Chu Xiu's subordinates who had captured him. Even if Wei Dongming was an idiot, he knew the difference between him and Chu Xiu. So, Wei Dongming pulled Uncle Li along and said, Let's go. Come with me to see the patriarch and ask him to save Chen. However, Wei Mok was still a little unhappy that Wei Dongming had come looking for him. Fire Slave and the others looked at each other. The Wei family had acted quite quickly. They had just asked for Qin back, and the other party had come to ask for him. Wei Dongming was in his 60s and had the strength of the three-flower realm. He was a direct elder of the Wei family. In terms of seniority, he was one generation older than the current patriarch, Wei Mok. However, Wei Dongming was currently in a rage. The more he refuted, the angrier Wei Dongming became. This idiot! Hearing Ghost Hand King's words, Fire Slave was relieved. He immediately called for a Jianghu constable and threw Wei Chen to him. He told him to teach this guy a lesson in the dark dungeon and let him know that a loose tongue can cause trouble. Chu Xiu was protective, and so was the Wei family. Ghost Hand King stroked his beard and said, So what if he's a direct descendant? Sir said himself that the Wei family is nothing to worry about, so don't worry. If he dares to insult Sir, throw him into the black prison and let someone teach him a lesson. Whether he lives or dies will be decided after Sir comes out of seclusion. He had given birth to Wei Chen at an old age, so he doted on him. This caused Wei Chen to have a personality that did not know the severity of the situation. He was indeed a guest of the Wei family, but he was also a person who needed to die. He had seen Fire Slave's strength and knew that he dared to kill people. He was sure that if he dared to act recklessly, Fire Slave would definitely kill him. However, at this time, Wei Dongming showed a smile that was uglier than crying. If the Wei family's token was useful, I would have used it long ago. Chen would not have been taken away by others. At this time, in the Jianghu Prefecture Inspector Hall, Fire Slave carried Wei Chen back to the main hall. However, as soon as he entered, he found Tangya, Yan Bugui, Wolf King, and the others were all there. But at this time, Someone outside reported that Wei Changling had arrived. Wei Mok didn't wait for Wei Dongming to speak as he waved his hand and said, "All right, you don't have to say anything more. No matter who Wei Chen offends, you just need to step forward and show the Wei family's name to resolve the matter. But when Wei Chen comes back, lock him up for me. As a disciple of the Wei family, it's fine if he's not strong enough, but he's always causing trouble for the Wei family. This kind of disciple should be taught a lesson." Wei Mok thought about it and suddenly said, "You just said that this matter was decided by Chu Xiu's subordinate, Fire Slave, and that Chu Xiu didn't participate in it?" The Ghost Hand Monarch said sinisterly, "Lord Wei is very awe-inspiring. You even dare to come to my Jianghu prefecture to ask for someone. If official Chu wasn't in seclusion right now, I reckon that Lord Wei wouldn't even dare to step through the doors of my Jianghu prefecture inspector hall, right? It's true that we captured him and he's locked up in the Black Prison. But he dared to insult official Chu. Without official Chu's permission, no one can take this person away." Wei Chen was the most troublemaker among the younger generation of the Wei family. Wei Mok had already cleaned up after him several times. But the problem was that Wei Chen had offended Chu Xiu. This caused Wei Dongming, who had just received the news, to immediately panic. "What? Chu Xiu?" After Fire Slave left, Uncle Li stamped his feet and returned to the Wei family first to inform the elder of the Wei family, Wei Dongming, who was Wei Chen's father. Normally, their branches were scattered throughout Guanxi. When they needed to report some miscellaneous matters, they would return to the main hall. But they would never gather together like this. Wei Dongming hurriedly said, "I wouldn't dare. Patriarch, please calm down." The Black Prison was a place where the patrol hall temporarily locked up criminals and thieves. However, there were very few people here. Fire Slave slapped his head. He had been too carefree during this period of time and had really forgotten about this. Wei Mok cursed inwardly. This Wei Chen's mouth had no filter. Sooner or later, he would die because of this mouth of his. Ghost Hand King smiled and said, "Tomorrow is the day of salary distribution. If you don't take action actively, shouldn't you be more active in receiving your salary?" He pointed at Uncle Li and yelled, "What did I tell you? I told you to follow Chen at all times. But in the end, you just watched him cause trouble." Wei Dongming hurriedly said, "Patriarch, you've misunderstood. No matter how willful Chen is, he wouldn't dare to act presumptuously in Chu Xiu's territory. This time's matter was purely an accident. It was also Chu Xiu's subordinates who were too overbearing. It's Chu Xiu." Therefore, Uncle Li could only watch as Fire Slave took Wei Chen away. He didn't dare to say a word. Wei Mok snorted coldly and said, "What else do you want? Do you want me to take action personally or have the great ancestor take action before you're satisfied? Will you only be satisfied if the entire Wei family is sacrificed for your precious son?" But now that Chu Xiu was in seclusion, there was only a group of ordinary Jianghu constables in the Jianghu Constabulary Hall. There wasn't even a three-flower realm martial artist. Wei Changling also had confidence. Since the last time he fought with Chu Xiu and lost the upper hand to Chu Xiu, Wei Mok seemed to have been provoked and spent most of his time in seclusion. Jiang Tao retreated. Wei Chen, who was isolated and helpless, was captured by Fire Slave. He wanted to break free but was knocked unconscious by the Fire Slave's chi. If this was an ordinary time, Wei Chen would have no problem doing this. He could protect the entire Guanxi Wei family. Wei Changling was an inspector of Guanxi. With Chu Xiu in seclusion, there was no one in the Jianghu Constabulary Hall who could stop Wei Changling. As he spoke, Wei Dongming pulled Uncle Li to Wei Mok's seclusion place. Uncle Li could leave, but if he left now, he would be offending the Wei family. Unless he didn't want to stay in Guangzhou anymore, he would not have a good ending if he offended the Wei family. Wei Chen's mouth was on him. What could he do? Could it be that he wouldn't let Wei Chen speak at all? The Fire Slave was not an idiot. Although he had brought Wei Chen, he didn't really attack along the way. He was worried that it would affect Chu Xiu. Seeing that the person was Wei Dongming, Wei Mok couldn't help but frown. What's going on? Who did Wei Chen offend? Wei Changling was a collateral relative of the Wei family. Although he was also at the Three-Flower Realm, Wei Dongming still looked down on him. If other people or forces touched his son, Wei Dongming, as an elder of the Wei family, could make the other party release Wei Changling and apologize with a word. The other people in the Wei family knew that Wei Mok liked to be quiet. Therefore, when he was in seclusion, they would try not to disturb him. Now that the door to his seclusion place was being knocked, could something big have happened? Wei Dongming nodded. This must be the fire slave's personal decision. The fire slave had said it himself. Moreover, Chu Xiu was in seclusion now. Everyone in Guanxi knew this. Uncle Li opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Uncle Li, who was already seriously injured, wanted to intervene when he saw this scene, but he forced himself to stop. When Wei Mok opened the door, he saw Wei Dongming say with bloodshot eyes, "Patriarch, please save Chen." After a while, Wei Mok finally said, "Since Chu Xiu doesn't know about it, then it's much easier. Right now, our relationship with Chu Xiu is a bit sensitive. Our Wei family is not ready to officially fall out with him. Since it's his men who captured Wei Changling, let's let Wei Changling go. He is now the inspector of the Guanzhong torture room. As long as Chu Xiu doesn't show up, he still has some advantage over the constables under Chu Xiu." At this time, the Ghost Hand King saw Wei Qin in the fire slave's hand. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "Who is this guy in your hand?" Wei Changling walked into the hall aggressively. He looked around and said coldly, "Where's Wei Qin? Hand him over." He was in seclusion right now, but Wei Dongming had come to interrupt his seclusion for his son. This really didn't know what was important. This made Wei Mok unhappy. Wei Dongming was getting more and more muddle-headed as he grew older. Wei Mok's expression immediately changed when the door to the seclusion room was knocked. Wei Mok frowned and said, "He dares to ignore the Wei family. Who did Wei Chen offend? The Yuan continent's Zhang family?" He couldn't help but say in surprise, "What day is it today? Why are you all back?" Wei Mok couldn't be bothered to waste words with this guy. He sent someone to inform Wei Changling and then went into seclusion again. Because after the criminals were caught, as long as the evidence was conclusive, they would be executed immediately. So they couldn't stay long in the black prison. If Chu Xiu was here, Wei Changling wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. Fire slave threw Wei Qin to the ground and said, "An idiot disciple of the Wei family insulted Darren in front of me. I brought him back to teach him a lesson. This guy seems to be a direct descendant of the Wei family and has special people to protect him. Ghost Hand King, take a look. Will there be any problems that will affect Darren?" Wei Mok's expression changed and he shouted, "What did I say before I went into seclusion? I told you not to provoke Chu Xiu, not to provoke Chu Xiu. When the time is right, you will naturally be able to take care of Chu Xiu. But your precious son dared to go to the Jianghu government to find trouble with Chu Xiu. Is he tired of living?" As he spoke, Wei Dongming let Uncle Li, who was behind him, tell him everything that had happened. He did not exaggerate or embellish the story. No matter who was right or wrong, his own disciple had been captured by the other to be taught a lesson. If the Wei family didn't even have the slightest reaction, then their reputation in the Guanxi region would plummet. Seeing that Uncle Li didn't speak, Wei Dongming vented some of his anger. But then he became slightly anxious. Wei Dongming said hesitantly, "Wei Changling? Can he do it?" But cursing was cursing. Wei Chen would definitely save him because of his face. Chapter 326. This was not the first time Wei Changling had suffered at the hands of Chu Xiu. Just as the Ghost Hand King had said, if Chu Xiu was not in seclusion, he might not even have the courage to step into the Jianghu government hall. But the problem was that Chu Xiu was in seclusion right now and would not come out for a while. What did he have to fear? Wei Changling looked at the Ghost Hand King and snorted. "You do not know the hierarchy. Did Chu Xiu teach you like this? Also, even if Wei Chen cursed Chu Xiu, he did it in the Qinzhou government, not your Jianghu government. You Chu Xiu subordinates are so domineering. You want to meddle in the affairs of other prefectures? Then is the torturer of this Guanxi region Lord Wei Zhiduan or Chu Xiu?" The Ghost Hand King sneered. Wei Changling thought that they were so arrogant that they wanted to play word games with them. In terms of strength, the Ghost Hand King was not as strong as Wei Changling, but he was experienced. He did not waste words with Wei Changling and said coolly, "Official Wei, please return. I only have one thing here. We will not hand over the person. If you want the person, wait for Official Chu to come out of seclusion and talk to him. If Official Chu says we will hand over, we will hand over." A cold light flashed in Wei Changling's eyes. Not handing over? I will take the person away today. I want to see who dares to stop me. As he finished speaking, more than a dozen martial practitioners surged in from outside the Jianghu Inspector Hall. These were the people Wei Changling had brought. But when they heard the noise, Du Guangzhong and the others led their people to surround Wei Changling in the center with vigilant expressions. There were two groups of people under Chu Xiu's command. One group was the Jianghu constables who had been the Jianghu inspector like Du Guangzhong. The other group were assassins from the Blue Dragon Society. These two groups were of different origins and had completely different personalities. While there had never been any conflict or enmity in the past, they had always disliked each other. However, now that someone had come to cause trouble, their little conflict was nothing. They could directly unite against the enemy. Wei Changling sneered and said, "Your hearts are very united. But do you think you are Chu Xiu? Do you think you can look down on a three-flower realm martial artist like me?" As he finished speaking, Wei Changling took a step forward. Powerful energy exploded around him. The cold and dark energy covered the entire hall. Changling was not afraid of acting in Jianghu. In any case, he had reason and evidence. Logically speaking, the fire slave was in the wrong in this matter. Capturing people from across worlds would make Chu Xiu's side seem domineering. So Wei Changling was right to ask for people. Right now, Chu Xiu had not appeared. He was the inspector, and the others were just ordinary Jianghu constables. If he acted, he was helping Chu Xiu teach his subordinates a lesson. If the Ghost Hand King and the others attacked him, then they did not know their place. But according to Chu Xiu's personality, he was never reasonable. If Chu Xiu came out of seclusion after this, he would most likely come to make trouble for him. But Wei Changling had confidence. Wei Mok had sent him here. The Wei family would naturally stand behind him. It was the same for Wei Juduan. He had long since heard that Wei Juduan had a falling out with Chu Xiu. Now that he was in the right in this matter, it was obvious who Wei Juduan would help. Wei Changling said coldly, "I will give you one last chance. Will you hand over the people or not?" The Ghost Hand King shook his head and said, "Sir Wei seems to have made up your mind? Tanya, Yen Bugui, I leave this to you too." As soon as he finished speaking, Ghost Hand King immediately retreated. Tanya and Yen Bugui, one lazily and the other slowly stood up. The lazy one was Tanya, and the slow one was Yen Bugui. Both of them used to be the gold medal assassins of the Heavenly Sin Branch. After joining Chu Xiu's team, they didn't really fight seriously. They spent most of their time cultivating in seclusion. At this time, they had already reached the peak of the physical invulnerability realm. They were only half a step away from the three-flower realm. The Ghost Hand King knew their strength. There was no need to disturb Wei Changling. The two of them were enough to deal with him. Tanya toyed with the dragon tail soul-chasing dart in his hand, a lazy smile on his face as he said, "We naturally can't compare to the Lord, but unfortunately, you don't even have the qualifications to compare to the Lord." Yen Bugui did not speak. He could not be bothered to speak. He took off the heavy sword on his back and dragged it on the ground. Wei Changling laughed in anger and said, Good, arrogant enough. Today, I will teach you what it means to respect your superiors." As he spoke, the long sword in Wei Changling's hand was covered in thick icicle energy. It stabbed towards Tanya with deep coldness. Tanya did not attack, but Yen Bugui's heavy sword was raised. When he had been in the Blue Dragon Society, he and Tanya had carried out many missions together. The two had great teamwork. Now that they were working together, so what if he was at the three-flower realm? They also had the confidence to kill Wei Changling. Yen Bugui's sword move was the pinnacle of power. His sword path was even more extreme than Qing Buhui, who had been killed by Chu Xiu. He had given up everything to pursue extreme violence and power. Misty Gang Qi condensed on the blade of the heavy sword. It was not released, but his sword seemed to carry the weight of thousands of kilograms. When it came crashing down, there was a violent sonic boom in the air. The heavy sword and long sword collided. In front of that extreme power, Wei Chongling's sword energy shattered. While he had negated the power, his right hand still felt numb, and his eyes showed shock. Where did this monster come from? Three Flower Realm martial artists were strong because they had formed the three flowers above their heads. Their mind, energy, and spirit became one, and their control over their energy greatly increased. Their explosive power far surpassed physical invulnerability realm martial artists. But right now, Yen Bugui had not even stepped into the three-flower realm. His sword strike contained this level of power. He was not weaker than him. No, in terms of pure power, Yen Bugui was stronger than him. At the moment when Yen Bugui made his move, Tanya also made his move. Tanya's attack was much more beautiful and violent than Yen Bugui's. In that moment, a string of golden light appeared in his hand. It was a dozen or so dragon-tail soul-chasing darts connected head to tail, slashing towards Wei Chongling with sharp energy. The dragon-tail soul-chasing darts seemed to have a life of their own under Tanya's control. They changed trajectories within the half-dragon and stabbed towards Wei Chongling's major meridians. Wei Chongling snorted coldly. The sword in his hand changed directions. The dense ice energy was like a snowstorm that sent the dragon-tail soul-chasing darts flying. But at the same time, Yen Bugui's heavy sword attacked with the weight of Mount Tai. This simple attack was even more powerful than before. Tanya's figure floated behind Wei Chongling like a willow catkin. His body twisted in the air. In a flash, countless cold lights exploded. These were tiny silver needles. They fell like a torrential rain of pear flowers. They were dazzling, but also extremely dangerous. Only the heavens knew if Tanya had put poison in the silver needles. Wei Chongling did not dare to underestimate them. He could only explode with all the energy in his body to block. But Tanya's attack had sealed off all possible places for him to dodge. He could only take Yen Bugui's blow head-on. With a loud explosion, Wei Chongling was thrown back several steps by Yen Bugui's blow. His face suddenly paled. But then an abnormal flush of red appeared on his face. But he suppressed it. Looking at Tanya and Yen Bugui, a hint of shock flashed through Wei Chongling's eyes. Where did Chu Xiu find these two monsters? Yen Bugui's sword move was heavy, violent, and savage, violent to the extreme. On the other hand, Tanya's movement technique and concealed weapons were incomparably strange and sinister. With the two of them working together, Tanya had used an endless stream of hidden weapons to seal off the space around him while assisting Yen Bugui, forcing him to fight back head-on. He was a martial artist at the Three-Flower Realm, yet he had almost been cut by Yen Bugui's sword to the point of vomiting blood. But before Wei Chongling could react, Tanya and Yen Bugui once again pressed forward. But this time, the two had reversed, with Yen Bugui as support and Tanya as the main. Yen Bugui's sword presence forced Wei Chongling to not dare to face it head-on. Tanya switched to his two daggers and fought close to Wei Chongling. His vicious fighting style forced Wei Chongling into a corner. Wei Chongling suddenly shouted angrily. Ice appeared on the long sword in his hand. His blood merged into it. The icy blue sword aura faintly showed a strange blood color. The storm-like sword aura slashed out and collided with Yen Bugui's sword. With a loud bang, Yen Bugui was thrown back dozens of feet, his heavy sword almost flying out of his hand. Wei Chongling was at the Three-Flower Realm and had the advantage in explosive power. At this moment, he had unleashed the power of his qi and blood. In terms of strength, he had already overwhelmed Yen Bugui. But at this time, the hilts of Tanya's two short blades faced each other and formed a spinning blade. They immediately gave off a blinding golden light and slashed towards Wei Chongling, who had just unleashed his full power. At the same time, Tanya's energy exploded. He threw out countless hidden weapons in that moment. Soul-chasing nails, plum-flower darts, bone-piercing needles, hand-flick arrows, a string of innumerable hidden weapons flew towards Wei Chongling. There was no order at all. There was only one word: many. Only the heavens knew how Tanya had hidden so many hidden weapons on him. At this time, Half of the hall was filled with Tang Ye's hidden weapons. Tang Ye's face was slightly pale after releasing so many hidden weapons in an instant. But within the cover of the hidden weapons, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Wei Changling used almost all of his energy to barely neutralize the hidden weapons. This caused him to sigh in relief. But at this time, the whirling blade that Tang Ye had first thrown out flew out of nowhere and cut Wei Changling's longsword in half. It narrowly cut across Wei Changling's arm. Blood sprayed and it almost cut off his entire right arm. Chapter 327. Blood spilled from Wei Changling's arm. At the same time, cold sweat streaked across his head. He had not expected that he would almost be crippled by two physical invulnerability experts. Just now, if he had been just a hair away, his arm would have been cut off by Tang Ye's blade. Without another word, Wei Changling turned and fled, not caring about his face as an inspector. If they continued to fight, Wei Changling did not dare to gamble on whether Tang Ye and Yen Bugui would dare to kill him. He only had one life. Seeing Wei Changling flee, Yen Bugui frowned and immediately wanted to give chase. However, he was stopped by Tang Ye. "Do not chase. I am exhausted. You alone cannot catch up to him. Also, official has not come out of seclusion. You are not really preparing to kill him?" Yen Bugui was skilled in strength, and he was only skilled in strength. If Wei Changling wanted to run, Yen Bugui could not catch up. Also, their statuses were different. If they killed Wei Changling, they would be committing a crime against their superiors. At least from the perspective of the Guanzhong torture room, they could not stand. Hearing Tang Ye's words, Yen Bugui put down his heavy sword and slowly tied it to his back. Tang Ye turned to the Ghost Hand King and said, "I think the Wei family will not let this go. We captured the person and lost face for the Wei family. Wei Changling came to ask for the person, and we seriously injured him. This is a slap to the face of the Wei family. The Wei family will not tolerate this." The Ghost Hand King snickered and said, "No rush. Official will probably come out of seclusion at that time. Do you think the Wei family can rise in front of official?" When Tang Ye thought of Chu Xiu's murderous nature, he could not help but nod. In reality, Chu Xiu's reputation was greater than the Guanzhong torture room in the outside world, especially around the eastern Qi government. If it was the local martial arts factions of the Jizhou government, those with similar strength to the Wei family, they would not even have the courage to challenge Chu Xiu. If the Wei family had learned their lesson, they might restrain themselves. Unfortunately, once Chu Xiu decided to teach them a lesson, the price they would have to pay would be the destruction of their families. Chu Xiu did not know what was happening in the outside world. After nearly a month of seclusion, Chu Xiu had stepped into the Five Qis origin realm. The increase in strength that the Five Qis origin realm brought to Chu Xiu wasn't as earth-shaking as when he reached the physical invulnerability stage of 3 flowers at one's prominence. However, the power in Chu Xiu's body had become more balanced, making his qi more perfect. A martial Dao grandmaster once said that heaven and earth were a big world, and the human body was a small world. Practicing martial arts was to cultivate oneself, and comprehending the Dao was to comprehend heaven and earth. Chu Xiu's essence, qi, and spirit became one, and the 5 elements in his 5 viscera circulated, connecting their heads and tails, reaching a very delicate balance. The total amount of spiritual qi had increased a little, but not by much. However, when Chu Xiu attacked again, his explosive power, control of spiritual qi, and recovery ability were much stronger than when he was at the 3 flowers at one's prominence realm. After stepping into the 5 Qis origin realm, Chu Xiu did not immediately come out of seclusion. Instead, he studied the heaven's sun gazing at air technique. Unfortunately, although he had made a breakthrough in his realm, the heaven's sun gazing at air technique did not improve at all. This strange technique still needed to be comprehended by observing heaven and earth, or comprehending the Tao during a battle to make a breakthrough. The real function of the heaven's sun gazing at air technique was to predict the changes of heaven and earth. Previously, when Chu Xiu used the heaven's sun gazing at air technique to see through his opponent's flaws, it was actually just a small skill that he had just learned. It was said that when the heaven's sun gazing at air technique was cultivated to great success, the user would be able to tell how many breaths it would take for a breeze to blow a leaf off a tree and where it would fall. The karma calculation was simply terrifying. It was a world of difference from the current cultivation of Chu Xiu, who had just started. Seeing through his opponent's flaws and hoping that his opponent would make a mistake would only be considered passive. If his opponent was extremely calm and did not make the slightest mistake when attacking, Chu Xiu's heaven's sun gazing at air technique would be useless. The last battle with Feng Wuling was purely a fluke. Feng Wuling's state of mind had too many flaws. If it had been a warrior at the unity of heaven and man realm, even if their strength was not as strong as Feng Wuling, as long as their state of mind had no flaws, Chu Xiu's battle would have been a disaster. Therefore, right now, Chu Xiu still had to cultivate the heaven's sun gazing at air technique to small success. Only then would he be able to show the true power of the heaven's sun gazing at air technique. Stepping out of seclusion, Chu Xiu's movements immediately attracted the attention of Ghost Hand King and the others. Congratulations to Sir for entering the 5 energies gathering realm. Your strength has improved greatly. Ghost Hand King and the others congratulated with joy. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "No need to be so courteous." Who attacked in the patrol hall previously? Although Chu Xiu had been in seclusion before, he was not in a life-or-death seclusion. At such a close distance, he could naturally sense the movements outside. However, Ghost Hand King knew his limits. He sighed and said, "The Wei family wants to keep a low profile, but we still have to act now. It is impossible for the Wei family to back down from a small matter like this." Wei Mok nodded and said, "Originally, it was only Wei Chen, a junior, who insulted Chu Xiu. In the end, Chu Xiu's subordinates were very domineering. They actually crossed the border and brought him back to the Jianghu prefecture. Now, Wei Changling went once and returned in defeat. He was also seriously injured by Chu Xiu's subordinates. This hatred is already big enough. If the Wei family backs down now, we will lose even more face." The Wei family patriarch stood up and said, "Let's go. Come with me to see Wei Juduan." Wei Mok said in surprise, "Wei Juduan can still control Chu Xiu now?" The fact that Wei Juduan and Chu Xiu were not on good terms with each other had already spread throughout the entire Guanxi. Everyone knew that Chu Xiu's influence had already grown and that he could even stand up to Wei Juduan as an equal. The Wei family patriarch said coolly, "Even if he cannot control it, he must. I have interacted with Wei Juduan for so many years and understand his personality. This person is narrow-minded and greedy. His desire for power is especially great. If other people encountered a subordinate like Chu Xiu, they would most likely not be enemies with him since they are nearing retirement. Would it not be better to form a good relationship with him? But if it is Wei Juduan, even though he is nearing retirement, he cannot tolerate a subordinate like Chu Xiu who dares to challenge him. Even without us, Wei Juduan is probably thinking about how to deal with Chu Xiu. Now that we are going to give him benefits and a reason, Wei Juduan will not refuse, and he has no reason to refuse." In the Guanxi Torture Hall branch, Wei Juduan, who was sitting in his study and drinking tea, had a gloomy expression. As a torture officer, he could not do anything to his own patrol inspector. This was probably the first time in all these years in the Guanzhong torture room. But it was precisely because of this that Wei Juduan was even more dissatisfied. He had to suppress Chu Xiu before he retired. As for forming a good relationship with him, Wei Juduan had never thought about it. After he retired, he was prepared to take his savings and leave the Guanzhong torture room to retire elsewhere. All these years, due to his personality, Wei Juduan had offended many people. Among the torture officers, Yin Batong was his archenemy. Xiao Yi and Chu Simo did not have a good relationship with him. This included his own subordinates. Other than his foster son Yang Ling, everyone else probably had an opinion of him. Moreover, some of Wei Juduan's actions had caused Guan Siyu to be displeased. If he continued to stay in the Guanzhong torture room, he would be an idiot. Chapter 328. Wei Juduan was surprised by forefather Wei's sudden visit. He naturally knew the Wei clan's ancestor and had many dealings with him when they were young. Of course, with their personalities and standpoints, these so-called dealings were naturally more confrontational and conflicting. But as Forefather Wei went into seclusion, the two did not have much interaction. Wei Zhiduan knew that Forefather Wei was famed for his fear of death. When his vitality started to decline, this old man did not dare to stay in the Jianghu. He hid in the back residence of the Wei family to recuperate and wanted to extend his lifespan. When Forefather Wei saw Wei Zhiduan, he smiled and cupped his hands. "We have not seen each other for many years. Official Wei is still as elegant as ever." Wei Zhiduan put on a fake smile and said, "The two of us can be considered old acquaintances, so don't talk so much nonsense. All these years, you haven't taken a single step out of the Wei clan. Why have you suddenly come to find me?" Seeing Wei Zhiduan so direct, Forefather Wei did not keep him in suspense. He said gravely, "Chu Xiu. The Wei family has come for Chu Xiu." Wei Zhiduan frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Forefather Wei said gravely, "Official Wei, you should know what I mean. Chu Xiu has wild ambitions. As long as he exists, Guanxi will not have a day of peace. This time, Chu Xiu was so arrogant that he went to other prefectures to capture people. I sent Wei Changling to demand an explanation, but he was wounded by Chu Xiu's subordinates. Lord Wei, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but Chu Xiu's influence in the Guanxi region is stronger than yours. After a period of time, I'm afraid that the entire Guanxi region will only know of Chu Xiu and not you, Lord Wei." Wei Zhiduan's expression changed, but he still snorted. "So what? This old man is about to retire. Do I still care about these things like fame and fortune?" The Wei clan ancestor revealed a faint smile. "Master Wei, you and I have known each other for several decades. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? Can you just swallow your anger? Just now, you told me not to keep you in suspense. Now let's be frank. Chu Xiu capturing someone from my Wei family is a small matter, but my Wei family losing face is a big matter. So, my Wei family must get this person back, and Chu Xiu must give in. As for you, Lord Wei, I'm sure you also want to suppress Chu Xiu. This time, you and I can join forces and completely suppress Chu Xiu's arrogance. This time, Chu Xiu is in the wrong. Don't tell me that Lord Wei doesn't even have the courage to touch Chu Xiu." Hearing this, Wei Zhiduan's face immediately revealed a hint of anger. However, before Wei Zhiduan could react, the Wei clan's patriarch handed him a card. Wei Zhiduan opened it and saw a large number of precious spirit medicines and cultivation resources. The Wei clan's patriarch said indifferently, "I knew that Lord Wei was preparing to retire, so I prepared these gifts for you in advance." Wei Zhiduan closed the card and thought for a while before saying, "In 3 days, come to the main hall to collect the person. I will ask Chu Xiu to hand over the person." The Wei clan's patriarch nodded and left. Just as the Wei clan's patriarch had said, Wei Zhiduan had long wanted to suppress Chu Xiu. Now that he had this opportunity, it was just right. Especially since the benefits that the Wei clan's patriarch had given him were something that Wei Zhiduan could not refuse. Wei Zhiduan ordered someone to call Yang Ling over. After entering, Yang Ling immediately bowed and said, "Foster father, why are you looking for me?" Seeing Yang Ling, Wei Zhiduan's expression became a little better. The Guanxi patrol envoys were either disloyal like Chu Xiu, or like Jiang Taoran and the others, each with their own schemes and eagerly waiting for him to leave. The one who was truly on his side and reliable was his foster son, Yang Ling, whom he had been nurturing and taking care of all this time. Thinking of this, Wei Zhiduan really felt that he had treated Yang Ling unfairly all these years. Looking at Yang Ling, Wei Zhiduan's expression softened a little. He said, "You should have heard about what Chu Xiu has done during this period of time. Now that the Wei clan has come knocking, I is also prepared to suppress this Chu Xiu. Go and tell Chu Xiu that in 3 days, bring the person to the branch and hand the person over to the Wei clan." Yang Ling said hesitantly, "But foster father, with Chu Xiu's personality, will he hand the person over so easily?" Wei Zhiduan said indifferently, "Not handing the person over is disobeying orders. Don't forget, I am still the disciplinary officer. It is a big taboo to go against one's superiors in the Guanzhong torture room. If Chu Xiu dares to disobey orders, although I won't go too far, it won't be a problem for me to take away one of his prefectures. Even Hall Leader Guan won't be able to say anything. Hall Leader Guan is impartial. Even if he is biased towards Chu Xiu, he will still have to consider the rules of the Guanzhong torture room, right? Yang Ling's heart trembled. According to what Wei Jieduan said, regardless of whether Chu Xiu handed the person over or not, he would actually be at a disadvantage. If he handed the person over, he would definitely lose his reputation. As long as he handed the person over, the people of Guanxi would definitely think, so what if you, Chu Xiu, are arrogant? In the end, you still have to compromise. If he didn't hand the person over, Wei Jieduan would use the crime of disobeying orders to take away one of the prefectures under Chu Xiu. This was even more unsolvable. A higher official could crush a person to death. Unless Guan Xiu could step forward to stop it, could Chu Xiu kill Wei Jieduan? However, according to Yang Ling's understanding of Guan Xiu's personality, it seemed like she wouldn't intervene in such matters. After thinking for a moment, Yang Ling respectfully cupped his hands at Wei Jieduan and said, "Yes, I will do it now." After exiting the main door, Yang Ling immediately headed to the Jianghu prefecture. At that moment, he was already completely tied up in Chu Xiu's carriage. It was too late to leave now. Once he entered the hall, Yang Ling said to Chu Xiu in a deep voice, "Official Chu, something bad has happened. Wei Jieduan has joined forces with the Nine Plains Wei family to deal with you." With that, Yang Ling directly told him about the conspiracy and plans of Wei Jieduan and the Wei family. Wei Jieduan thought that he only had one loyal godson, Yang Ling, under him. If he knew that Yang Ling had sold him out in such a short time, Wei Jieduan would probably go berserk from anger before Chu Xiu could do anything. After hearing this, Chu Xiu's eyes immediately revealed a hint of coldness. To be honest, Chu Xiu actually didn't want to deal with Wei Jieduan so soon. Previously, Chu Xiu's plan was to make Wei Jieduan a mere figurehead step by step. With Wei Jieduan as the disciplinary officer above him, Chu Xiu's authority would be completely above Wei Jieduan's. This way, once he reached the unity of heaven and man realm, he would naturally become the disciplinary officer. The rules of the Guanzhong torture room had always been like this. The torture officers were all promoted from their respective territories. This way, they would have a certain foundation and would be easier to manage. With Chu Xiu's current power in Guanxi, as long as he reached the unity of heaven and man realm step by step, the position of Guanxi torture officer would definitely belong to him. But now that Wei Jieduan insisted on finding trouble with him, Chu Xiu couldn't care so much. Regardless of whether it was the first or the second of Wei Jieduan's conditions, Chu Xiu wouldn't agree to them. Since that was the case, Chu Xiu wouldn't choose either and would choose to completely fall out with them. After calling the Ghost Hand King and the others over, Chu Xiu explained his plan to them. The Ghost Hand King and the others could accept it, but Yang Ling's eyes widened in shock. He hesitated and said, "Official Chu, is this really feasible?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Nothing in this world is 100% feasible. I can only reduce the variables to the minimum. Yang Ling, you are the most crucial part of this. If you don't participate, I won't force you. If you stand on my side, there will definitely be a place for you in the Guanxi area in the future. You know my personality. I'm not Wei Jieduan, and I don't like to paint pavilions in the sky for others." Yang Ling smiled bitterly and said, "Whatever Lord says, this subordinate will do." Chu Xiu gave him two choices, but he didn't dare to choose the former. He had heard everything, and Chu Xiu had something on him. If he didn't want to follow Chu Xiu, then there was only one path, death. Chu Xiu didn't force him, because there was no need to force him to choose death. 3 days later, Chu Xiu brought the Ghost Hand King and the others to the Guanxi branch. Actually, ever since Chu Xiu came to the Guanxi branch, he rarely came to the branch. Chu Xiu couldn't be bothered to deal with Wei Jieduan, and he didn't want to deal with Wei Jieduan either. He raised his head and glanced at the sky. Perhaps from today onwards, this place would be under his control. Of course, it depended on whether things went smoothly. After the surrounding warriors of the Guanxi branch saw Chu Xiu, they all greeted Chu Xiu. Their attitudes were not bad. In fact, Chu Xiu's reputation in the entire Guanzhong torture room was still very good. Although he was mostly cursed in the outside world, he was, after all, a member of the Guanzhong torture room. For so many years, the Guanzhong torture room had always been unknown. It wasn't easy for a person like Chu Xiu to become famous outside. Regardless of whether his reputation was good or bad, it was enough for the Guanzhong torture room to gain face. Even if they were all Wei Juduan's men, this didn't prevent them from having a good impression of Chu Xiu. From this, it could be seen how bad Wei Juduan's methods were. In the entire Guanxi branch, there was almost no one who truly stood on Wei Juduan's side. Even his adopted son, Yang Ling, had some complaints about him. Since ancient times, the way to control subordinates relied on nothing more than two things. One was a strong personal charisma, just like the previous hall master Chu Kuanga, who was respected by all the warriors in the pugilistic world. The other was benefits. If you brought benefits to your subordinates, they would risk their lives for you. The more benefits you could give to your subordinates, the more they would risk their lives for you. This was because they were afraid that one day, someone who could risk his life even more than them would come and replace their position. This was what Chu Xiu was currently using. He firmly believed that a relationship maintained by benefits was more reliable than the so-called familial and brotherly love. Just like now, Chu Xiu's subordinates, Du Guangzhong, and the group from the Blue Dragon Society. Both sides were competing with each other, afraid that they would be pulled apart by the other and then abandoned by Chu Xiu. Chapter 329. In the main hall of the Guanxi branch, Chu Xiu entered with his men. Aside from Wei Juduan sitting in the middle with Yang Ling standing behind him, there was also the Wei family's ancestor and a few Wei family disciples. The Wei family's head, Wei Mok, wasn't here. The Wei family was such a large family, so there had to be someone guarding it. When he saw Chu Xiu walk in with his men, the Wei family's ancestor subconsciously looked at Chu Xiu. He was very curious about Chu Xiu. For an old man like the Wei family's ancestor who had lived for more than 100 years, he had seen many young talents, but there weren't many who could do what Chu Xiu did. Being born in a sect and being born in the wilderness were two completely different types of treatment. The former was easy, but the latter was difficult. It was extremely difficult for Chu Xiu to reach his current position by relying on his humble background. However, the Wei family's ancestor already knew what kind of person Chu Xiu was just by looking at his face. This person's eyes were sinister, but he could still look straight at his superior, Wei Juduan. It could be imagined that Chu Xiu didn't have the slightest bit of respect for Wei Juduan. He was a person with wild ambitions. However, the Wei family's ancestor didn't mind. Rules were rules. As long as Chu Xiu wanted to stay in the Guanzhong torture room, he had to abide by these rules. How could he, Chu Xiu, dare to kill Wei Juduan? In the main hall, when Wei Juduan saw Chu Xiu arrive, he said indifferently, "You're here? Have a seat." Chu Xiu cupped his hands perfunctorily and sat down with his men. His attitude immediately made Wei Juduan even angrier. With a cold snort, Wei Juduan said, "Chu Xiu, you should know why I called you here today. I have so many inspectors under me, but you're the most courageous one. You're the Jian province's inspector. Who gave you the authority to arrest people in the Chen province? Who?" Wei Juduan slammed the table and shouted angrily. His aggressive manner made it seem like he wanted to swallow Chu Xiu alive. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Is Sir Wei very angry? I arrested people from the Juyuan Wei family, not your people. Are you prepared to fall out with me for an outsider?" Before Wei Juduan could speak, the Wei family stood up and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, the Wei family didn't plan to be your enemy. The Guanzhong torture room and the local powers of the Guanzhong have never been opposing each other. The Guanzhong torture hall is the fish, and the Wulin factions of Guanzhong are the water. Neither side can do without the other, but you insist on taking things to the extreme, forcing the Wei family to act. The Wei family has been around for 1,000 years. Before the Guanzhong torture room was built, the Wei family was already in the Guanzhong area. You, an inspector, want to control the Wei family? You're delusional. You've crossed borders and captured a disciple of the Wei family. That's against the rules of the Guanzhong torture room. Hand over the person, and we'll forget about this for now. Otherwise, Sir Wei will get justice for the Wei family. Wei Zhiduan also said coldly, Chu Xiu, I told you to hand over the person. Did you bring him? Do you know the consequences of disobeying orders? Don't think that you can ignore the higher-ups just because you've made some contributions to the Guanzhong torture room. If I take down one of your provinces, even Hall Master Guan won't be able to say anything if he finds out. Chu Xiu said indifferently, Since Sir Wei has spoken, I'll give you face. I've already brought the person. Hearing Chu Xiu say this, Wei Zhiduan and the Wei family's ancestor looked at each other, their eyes revealing a trace of smugness. Their guess was right. Compared to disobeying orders, this Chu Xiu could be considered to be sensible. Handing over the person and taking a step back would at least protect the province under his control. This way, it would be more practical. After a while, Fire Slave carried a person into the hall and closed the door at the same time. However, neither Wei Zhiduan nor the Wei family's ancestor noticed the Fire Slave's action of closing the door. Their gazes were all focused on Wei Chen. The current Wei Chen was simply miserable to the extreme. His cultivation had already been crippled, his dantian destroyed, and the tendons in his hands and feet had all been completely crushed. He hadn't used a sword to cut them, but had forcibly crushed them with his bare hands. Such a ruthless method had completely crippled Wei Chen. Moreover, it wasn't just his martial arts that were crippled, but his entire person. He would probably be bedridden for the rest of his life. Seeing Wei Chen's appearance, the Wei family's ancestor's expression was already extremely gloomy. What was the use of bringing such a cripple back to the Wei family? Would he be ridiculed by others? How was Chu Xiu making a concession? This was clearly a provocation. Wei Zhiduan was currently in a violent rage. He had asked Chu Xiu to bring Wei Chen over, but in the end, Chu Xiu had brought a cripple over. This was clearly a deliberate provocation of his dignity. Wei Zhiduan had just stood up and was about to scold Chu Xiu when Chu Xiu stood up first and said coldly, Lord Wei, have you slammed the table enough? Slamming the table doesn't mean that the person's words are effective. You are someone who is about to retire, so why do you still want to meddle in these matters? Wouldn't it be better to obediently endure until you retire, then find a place to withdraw from the pugilistic world and retire? The Wei family has given you a lot of elixirs and pills, as expected of the Guanxi great family with 1,000 years of history. But Lord Wei, although some things are never too much, you should be prepared to spend them even if you have the life to earn them. Hearing this, the words that Wei Zhiduan had wanted to say were immediately swallowed back down. A wave of cold air instantly rushed to his head. How did Chu Xiu know that the Wei family had given him things? By guessing? But even if it was a guess, how did Chu Xiu know that the Wei family had given him elixirs and pills? Someone had leaked the secret. Only a few of Wei Zhiduan's confidants knew about this. Who was it that had informed Chu Xiu beforehand? Thinking of this, Wei Zhiduan felt that something was wrong. If someone had really leaked the secret to Chu Xiu, why would Chu Xiu still appear here? Purposely walking into a trap? But without waiting for Wei Zhiduan to think further, behind him, Yang Ling, who had always been very low-key, suddenly had an ominous glint in his eyes. All the vital energy in his body had been poured into a 9-inch-long steel needle, which he stabbed towards Wei Zhiduan's back. The steel needle in Yang Ling's hand was Tang Ye's hidden weapon, the life-seizing bone needle. But originally, there was no poison on it, but Chu Xiu was afraid that it was not safe, so he had Ghost Hand King mix some highly toxic substances and smear it on the steel needle. A small steel needle could not take Wei Zhiduan's life, but Chu Xiu could. Wei Zhiduan had never thought that Yang Ling, who he had thought was the most loyal to him, would actually secretly attack him from behind. Moreover, it was a fatal attack. It was unknown what the steel needle was made of, but it was incomparably strong. It directly tore apart Wei Zhiduan's protective vital energy and stabbed towards his back. Only at this time did Wei Zhiduan really react. Under the stimulation of killing intent, his whole body exploded with a strong gang qi. With a loud bang, Yang Ling was directly hit by the Gang Qi and flew out while vomiting blood. And the steel needle had just barely left a bloody mark on Wei Jieduan's arm. Although Yang Ling vomited blood because of this move, the corner of his mouth bloomed with a trace of a smile, because his mission had been completed at this time. The poison on the steel needle was not considered strong. After all, Ghost Hand King was not a poison expert like the Five Poison sect, but this poison still had some effect on Wei Jieduan. But at this time, Chu Xiu had already made his move. At the moment when Yang Ling made his move, Chu Xiu gathered his essence, qi, and spirit. His mental energy revolved to the extreme, and the heaven's sun gazing at air technique was displayed. At this time, Chu Xiu's eyes were even slightly white, and there was not a trace of black in his eyes. He was like a ghost god, and looked extremely terrifying. Chu Xiu had been in seclusion for so many days. Although he was not able to advance the heaven's sun gazing at air technique to another realm, he had comprehended some of the uses of the heaven's sun gazing at air technique. For example, at this time, he used all his mental energy on the heaven's sun gazing at air technique. At this time, the line that represented Wei Jieduan's power was constantly dancing, but it was extremely slow, as if it was in slow motion. This was not because Wei Jieduan's speed was slow, but because Chu Xiu's eyes were too fast. By using all his mental energy on the heaven's sun gazing at air technique, Chu Xiu even entered a subtle realm when he saw the opponent's loophole. Although he still could not predict the real change of the three, or calculate the cause and effect of heaven's secrets, it allowed Chu Xiu to have a deeper understanding of the loophole. There was only one chance. From Yang Ling's move to Chu Xiu's move, both sides seemed to have practiced it countless times. It was simply seamless, and the timing was not different for a moment. The Heaven's Demon Dance in Chu Xiu's hand had already been unsheathed. At this time, all the spiritual energy in his body condensed on the blade, causing the originally black blade to become dark red, as if it was cast with blood. At the same time, the power of qi and blood flowed into the Heaven's Demon Dance, and the devil weapon, the Heaven's Demon Dance, seemed to feel Chu Xiu's mood. After absorbing Chu Xiu's power of qi and blood, its aura had become extremely fierce and evil. It was definitely a devil weapon among devil weapons. Staring closely at the lines that represented Wei Jieduan, he found the weakest one. When Chu Xiu's blade fell, it was strangely silent. A bloody light flashed, and the surging devil qi had just erupted. Wei Jieduan's face still had the disbelief of being sneak attacked by his adopted son. On the other side, the Wei family's ancestors seemed to have just reacted, and his hand had just grasped the hilt of his sword. In such a short moment, Chu Xiu's ultimate blade easily tore apart Wei Jieduan's protective aura, and it fell from an unimaginable angle. Blood splattered, and Wei Jieduan's head directly flew into the sky, and blood splattered on the ground. Chu Xiu's eyes returned to normal, and the hand that was holding the Heaven's Demon Dance trembled slightly. This blade not only consumed Chu Xiu's spiritual energy and power of qi and blood, but most importantly, it almost drained his spiritual energy. From the moment Yang Ling made his move, Chu Xiu used the Heaven's sun gazing at air to the extreme. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to cooperate with Yang Ling so tacitly. This kind of thing could not be practiced in advance. Fortunately, Yang Ling's attack was decisive, and Chu Xiu also seized this opportunity. The two of them cooperated and actually beheaded Wei Jieduan with one blade. Although Wei Jieduan was only an old man at the unity of heaven and man realm, no matter how old he was still at the unity of heaven and man realm. If Chu Xiu's matter was placed in the pugilistic world, it could almost be called a miracle. Chapter 330. As Wei Jieduan's head fell to the ground, the people present were still unable to react. Before the Wei family's great ancestor could even draw his sword, Wei Jieduan was already dead in front of him. This made him immediately widen his eyes, his face full of disbelief. It was true that Chu Xiu was strong, and it was also true that he also had a record of killing people in the unity of heaven and man realm. Moreover, Chu Xiu was in the three-flower realm before, but now Chu Xiu had already stepped into the five qis collecting in mind realm. However, what was the situation when Chu Xiu killed Feng Wuling last time? It was a fight to the death with almost all his strength, but now Chu Xiu only used a knife to cut off Wei Judwan's head. Was Chu Xiu too strong, or was Wei Judwan, a great expert in the unity of heaven and man realm, so old that he could no longer fight? They could not see exactly what kind of power and price Chu Xiu had paid to kill Wei Judwan. Even though it had only been a short instant, the amount of power and energy Chu Xiu had expended was even more than what he had expended in the 15 minutes he had spent fighting with others. Smiling at the Wei family's great ancestor and the others, Chu Xiu shouted, "The people of the Wei family killed Lord Wei Judwan and despised the laws of the Guanzhong torture room. Their crimes are punishable by death. None of them can escape." The door was opened, and the people in the Guanxi branch rushed into the lobby when they heard the sound. They were stunned when they saw Wei Judwan's body on the ground, not knowing what had happened. At this time, Yang Ling, who had been beaten by Wei Judwan to the point of vomiting blood, stood up, pointed at the Wei family's great ancestor and the others, and shouted, "Attack! They killed my adoptive father." Everyone in the Guanxi area knew that Chu Xiu and Wei Judwan did not get along, so they did not believe what Chu Xiu said. However, Yang Ling was different. Everyone in Guanxi knew that Yang Ling was Wei Judwan's godson and Wei Judwan's confidant. The credibility of his words was much higher than that of Chu Xiu. Moreover, now that Wei Judwan was dead, they subconsciously chose to listen to Yang Ling and attacked the Wei family together. Chu Xiu recovered his Zhen Qi, and the heavenly demon dance brought with it a sinister blood light and devil Qi as it slashed towards the Wei family old ancestor. There was a hidden killing intent in the blade momentum. Wei clan's old ancestor's sword descended, and the icy soul cold light slashed out, blocking Chu Xiu's blade. He roared, "Chu Xiu was the one who killed him. You've all been deceived." Even though the Wei family patriarch was shouting, no one was listening to him. One was an outsider, and the other was a hero of Guanzhong torture room, a person who was the face of Guanzhong torture room. Was there a need to say more about whom they would choose to believe? The most important thing was that Yang Ling was here. Even if they did not believe in Chu Xiu, they had to believe in Yang Ling. This was also why Chu Xiu said that Yang Ling was the most important part of his plan. Stepping into the 5 Qis collecting in the origin realm, Chu Xiu was actually confident that he could kill Wei Judwan head-on. Wei Judwan's strength was not too strong, and he was now old. According to Chu Xiu's investigation, Wei Judwan had almost never really fought in the past few years. His qi and blood were already very serious. If it was not for the fact that there were no suitable candidates in Guanzhong torture room, he was afraid that he would have already retired. Chu Xiu had now stepped into the 5 Qis collecting in the origin realm. If they fought face to face, even if Wei Judwan did not have any loopholes, Chu Xiu could still force a loophole out of him. However, how long would it take to kill Wei Judwan in a head-on battle? This was something that even Chu Xiu himself could not say for sure. A skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. Although Wei Judwan was old, no matter how old he was still in the unity of heaven and man realm. God knew what other trump cards he had. When the time came, the whole city would know about it. Even if Chu Xiu had done so many meritorious deeds for Guanzhong torture room, and even if he had a great reputation, he would not be able to get away with it. Therefore, Chu Xiu chose to let Yang Ling launch a sneak attack while he cooperated with Yang Ling. With the power of the heaven's sun gazing at air technique, he seized the opportunity that Yang Ling had created for him and finally killed Wei Judwan with one slash. Just like what Yang Ling had said, this time, Chu Xiu was not 100% confident. If Yang Ling's strength was not enough and he did not injure Wei Judwan, if Wei Judwan's strength was beyond his imagination, and he did not reveal any loopholes after being sneak attacked by his own people, then Chu Xiu would not be able to kill him. However, there were no ifs in this world. Wei Judwan was dead, and Chu Xiu was still alive. This proved that his gamble this time was correct. Seeing that the Wei family patriarch was still shouting, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Stop shouting. No one here will believe your Wei family." So what if your Wei family has a long history? People have to look at the present and not live in history. If I say that you killed Wei Judwan, then you killed Wei Judwan. A hint of coldness and regret flashed in the Wei family patriarch's eyes. At this moment he was really regretful. However, he did not regret making an enemy out of Chu Xiu. He regretted that he did not completely consign Chu Xiu to eternal damnation. In the Wei family patriarch's view, this Chu Xiu was simply a complete lunatic. The Wei family patriarch never would have thought that Chu Xiu actually dared to kill Wei Jieduan in public. It was insubordination, and it was so ruthless. It was no longer important when Yang Ling was bribed by Chu Xiu. What was important was that Chu Xiu actually had the guts to kill Wei Jieduan a long time ago. Could it be that he, Chu Xiu, was not afraid of the Guanzhong torture room's punishment? Dealing with an enemy like Chu Xiu, either he did not make a move, or he made a move to kill. Otherwise, there would be no end of trouble. The Wei family patriarch gnashed his teeth in hatred and said, "Chu Xiu, I underestimated you this time. You're simply a lunatic. I only miscalculated one thing, and that was that I did not expect my Wei family to be going against a lunatic. However, you won't be able to be arrogant for long. Killing a colleague is a serious crime, and insubordination is an even more serious crime. No matter how great your reputation in the Guanzhong torture room is, this reputation will not be able to protect you. I want to see if you, Chu Xiu, can survive this time." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Whether I can survive this time, I'm afraid you won't be able to see it." As his voice fell, Chu Xiu's hand formed a fist seal. When the seal fell, Gang Qi seemed to transform into a large net, covering all directions. Heaven and earth were useless. Under the wisdom fist seal, the Wei family patriarch's body was imprisoned. He wanted to break free, but he was shocked to find that the strength of Chu Xiu's vital qi was not inferior to his at all. The unity of heaven and man realm was a level stronger than the 5 qis collecting in the origin realm. Furthermore, he had been in this realm for so many years, while Chu Xiu had just stepped into the 5 qis collecting in the origin realm. Where did his vital qi cultivation come from? The demonic dance slashed down, and the power of the Avicii demonic blade was displayed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. The surging demonic qi and vital qi merged, and the power that erupted made the Wei family patriarch fearful, and he could only bitterly resist. Right now, Chu Xiu had the intention to kill the Wei family patriarch. It should be said that from the moment he prepared to kill Wei Jieduan, the Wei family had to be destroyed. If the Wei family was not destroyed, where could he find a scapegoat? Where could he find an excuse? In the past, when he faced Feng Wuling, Chu Xiu felt a great deal of pressure. He could only use the heaven's sun gazing at air as a gambling method to fight with his life on the line. In the end, he won the gamble, and Feng Wuling died. But now, when he faced the Wei family patriarch, Chu Xiu did not feel any pressure. There were 3 reasons. The first was that Chu Xiu had stepped into the 5 qis collecting in the origin realm, and his body was no longer the same as before. The second was his background. It was very difficult for a rogue cultivator to reach a high position. This difficulty was not only reflected in the lack of cultivation resources and the guidance of a famous teacher, but also in the cultivation technique. Those who could rely on an ordinary cultivation technique to achieve success were in the minority. Obviously, the Wei family patriarch was not one of them. Compared to Feng Wuling's Yu maiden swordplay, his cultivation technique was on a different level. As for the third reason, it was because the Wei family patriarch's state of mind was different. He was a person who was afraid of death. Even if he was invincible in the world, he could not escape the pressure of time. Everyone in the pugilistic world would die one day, and the decline of one's qi and blood was inevitable. Those who could see through this naturally did not matter. In some large sects, those seemingly old people were actually the most terrifying. This was because they knew that they were not far from death, so they dared to use the last of their strength to fight for their sect. The power of extreme sublimation was very terrifying. However, those who could not see through this were afraid of death and always held back when they attacked. They did not dare to fight with their lives on the line, and such people were more likely to die. The Wei family patriarch was such a person. Back when he was at his peak, he only felt that his qi and blood were declining a little, so he began to cultivate in seclusion, hoping to slow down his aging. One could imagine how afraid he was of death. At this time, Chu Xiu had already made up his mind to kill, but the Wei family patriarch still did not fight with his life on the line. He only wanted to expose the fact that Chu Xiu had killed Wei Jidwan, so that the Guanzhong torture room could punish Chu Xiu. With this kind of state of mind, the Wei family patriarch was forced to the extreme by Chu Xiu's Avicii demon blade. As a warrior at the unity of heaven and man realm, he was actually suppressed by Chu Xiu to the point where even counterattacking was a luxury. During the battle, the Avicii demon blade in Chu Xiu's hand was evil and ruthless. At the same time, he would occasionally use the heaven's sun gazing at air to see if he could find any loopholes in the Wei family patriarch's defense. However, he had used up too much of his energy just now, so he could not use the heaven's sun gazing at air for a long time. However, it did not matter. Although the Wei family patriarch did not have any big loopholes when he attacked, it was impossible for him to make every move perfect. Once Chu Xiu found a small loophole, Chu Xiu would definitely attack wildly, almost injuring the Wei family patriarch. At this time, the other people of the Wei family were also very miserable. This time, the Wei family patriarch thought that the matter was in the bag, so he did not bring too many people. There were only a few disciples of the Wei family, most of whom were in the physical invulnerability or inner invulnerability realm. There were only 2 warriors at the 3-flower realm. However, on Chu Xiu's side, Tangya, Yanbugui, and the others were all here. In addition, the warriors from the Guanxi branch under Wei Jidwan were also here. Under the combined attack of these people, several people from the Wei family had already been killed. The people under Wei Jidwan did not kill. The ones who killed were Chu Xiu's people. Seeing this scene, the Wei family patriarch began to panic. It seemed that Chu Xiu really did not intend to let him leave alive today. Chapter 331. Not shedding a tear until you see the coffin. This phrase perfectly described the mentality of some people, such as the Wei family's ancestor. Just now, if the Wei family's ancestor had intended to escape from the beginning, Chu Xiu would not have been able to catch up with a warrior of the unity of heaven and man realm. But now that both sides had fought for so long, the Wei family's people were almost all dead, and the Wei family's ancestor himself had consumed a lot of true qi. It was already too late for him to think of escaping now. The Wei family's ancestor swung the sword in his hand, and in an instant, a wave of icy blue gang qi rippled out, drawing the heaven and earth, causing an extremely cold force to seep into the gang qi ripple and rush towards Chu Xiu. The cold air lingered around his body, and the Wei family's ancestor also wanted to take this opportunity to escape. Other than Chu Xiu, no one dared to fight head-on against an expert of the unity of heaven and man realm, even Tangya and Yan Bugui. Facing the Wei family's ancestor, they had no choice but to make way. If they tried to forcefully resist, it would only be courting death. But at this moment, Chu Xiu formed a seal with both hands, and in an instant, a supreme light bloomed. The perfect Aquarius seal, fulfilling a lifetime's wish. There was a loud explosion, and the cold gang qi was extinguished. Chu Xiu's hand formed the inner binding seal, and his figure appeared in front of the Wei family's ancestor almost in an instant. A knife slashed down, and there was a trace of strange divinity in the Avicii demon blade, making it even more evil. In his shock, the Wei clan ancestor slashed out with his sword. The sword's edge drew in the heaven and earth, and stellar energy surged towards Chu Xiu's saber like an ice storm. However, it was directly shattered by the violent demonic saber. Even the Wei family's 5th revolution treasure weapon in the Wei family's ancestor's hand showed traces of cracks, and finally with a loud bang, it directly shattered. Chu Xiu's eyes were filled with murderous intent, forgetting the world of mortals, having no worries, and a state of selflessness. The Wei ancestor hadn't fought for more than a decade, and the sword in his hand hadn't been stained with blood for more than a decade. It didn't have the baleful aura of a weapon, and he himself didn't have any killing intent or battle intent. Chu Xiu, on the other hand, had slaughtered countless people along the way. He had experienced countless life and death battles. In that instant, his killing intent surged to the heavens, causing the Wei family ancestors' heart to tremble. This was the first time he had felt fear towards Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu were to use the heaven's sun gazing at air now, he would probably be able to see many flaws in the Wei family's patriarch. However, now that Chu Xiu had stepped into the selfless killing realm, his mind was filled with killing intent and battle intent. In his current state, he was unable to display a martial art like the heaven's sun gazing at air. However, it didn't matter now. Against the Wei family's ancestor, he could clearly kill him head-on. Why would he need to find a loophole to launch a sneak attack? As the fist fell, boundless killing intent surged. The powerful killing intent seemed to condense into a solid substance, dyeing everything around it crimson red as it charged towards the Wei family's patriarch. The annihilation fist of heaven and earth. In the great yin and yang sorrowful poem of Heaven and Earth, very few people in the Jianghu could recognize most of the martial arts. For example, Chu Xiu's great primordial chaos technique of Heaven and Earth. As long as Chu Xiu didn't say anything about it, no one would be able to recognize it. However, the annihilation fist of Heaven and Earth was very famous. There were many experts in the Eastern Qi military who knew this fist technique. It condensed killing intent to the limit, and even before the fist fell, the killing intent could already tear people apart. The Wei family's patriarch also recognized the annihilation fist of Heaven and Earth. At that critical moment, all the stellar energy in his body gathered in his right arm. He pointed out with his sword finger, and the surrounding stellar energy condensed into ice. However, he continued to point out with his second finger. The power of the ice stacked together, but it didn't explode. Instead, it was hidden within, and its power multiplied. In an instant, the Wei family's patriarch pointed out 9 sword fingers in a row. The power of the 9 sword fingers overlapped, like an iceberg. In that instant, the Wei family's patriarch's face was frighteningly pale. This was the Wei family's 9-layered cold mountain sword. It could be said to be the Wei family's trump card. In fact, when the Wei family's patriarch was young, he had used this sword technique to make a name for himself. When he was at his peak, he could indeed explode with the absolute power of the 9-layered cold mountain sword. However, after using this technique, the Wei family's patriarch felt that he had exhausted himself to the limit. The killing intent of the annihilation fist came crashing down. The powerful power could suppress everything. The 9 layers of power of the 9-layered cold mountain sword exploded with a loud bang. The powerful stellar energy rushed through Chu Xiu's internal organs and meridians, causing Chu Xiu's face to turn pale in an instant. However, it was soon followed by a hint of red. However, even so, Chu Xiu still didn't retreat. Under the state of the annihilation fist, even if Chu Xiu maintained his rationality, it was inevitable that he would be affected by this powerful killing intent. He swore not to rest until he killed his opponent. He didn't even use the internal lion seal to suppress himself. Chu Xiu directly used the power of the annihilation fist to meet the 9-layered cold mountain sword head-on. With a loud bang, the ice completely shattered. However, Chu Xiu's right arm had already been cut by the ice and was dripping with blood. However, these were only external injuries. Chu Xiu didn't even care. The fist landed, and the perfect Aquarius seal burst out. The blinding light shone down, and within the dazzling light, there was a ferocious killing intent. The Wei family patriarch did his best to resist, but he was still blasted by the seal until his blood boiled, and his figure fell back. Chu Xiu turned around and formed the great Vajra wheel seal. The powerful fist landed with a loud bang. They collided again, and there was a loud explosion. Right now, Chu Xiu's state could be said to be strange. He was like a robot, smashing down one after another with the great Vajra wheel seal. He was completely competing with the Wei family patriarch in stamina, primeval qi, and willpower. Although Chu Xiu was a realm lower than the Wei family patriarch, he had the glazed golden thread gu, and his cultivation methods that were not inferior to the top sections. His accumulation was not inferior to the Wei family patriarch. After more than 10 moves, the Wei family patriarch was already vomiting blood from the impact. He couldn't hold on any longer. In such an intense battle, no one could retreat. It was either kill the opponent or be killed themselves. Wei family patriarch felt fear in his heart. He wanted to retreat, but retreating meant death. Just as the Wei family patriarch's attacks were gradually slowing down and he had the intention to retreat, Chu Xiu formed seals with both hands. It was an incomparably complex seal. In an instant, the five-colored light in Chu Xiu's hands shone brightly, and the power of the five elements burst out. They connected head to tail, mutually reinforcing and restraining each other, and smashed down like a great sun will seal. Sun will seal. Chu Xiu had used this seal technique before, but he had barely managed to do it. He hadn't unleashed its full might. The true power of the sun will seal should be at the 5-chi unification stage. The power of the 5 elements in the body had reached a balance, and the 5 elements had fused into one. Only then could the true power of the sun will seal be unleashed. The power of the 5 elements burst out, the 5 powers mutually reinforced and restrained each other, and the superimposed power was not as simple as adding them together. Under the sun will seal, the meridians in the Wei family patriarch's body shattered, and he vomited blood as he was sent flying. But immediately after, a black light appeared beside him. Heavenly demonic dance slashed across the Wei family patriarch's neck, causing blood to splatter. The Wei family patriarch's head was already in Chu Xiu's hands. The surrounding Guanxi branch martial artists were all stunned, including Chu Xiu's subordinates. Although they knew that Chu Xiu had killed a one-with-the-world expert, that was only hearsay. Now that they had seen it with their own eyes, the shock they felt was incomparable to hearsay. Holding the Wei family patriarch's head, Chu Xiu popped a healing pill into his mouth, recovering his injuries and restoring his true qi. To be honest, Chu Xiu did not feel the slightest pressure in the battle with the Wei family patriarch. The feeling the opponent gave Chu Xiu was not even as strong as the leader of the River East's 5 heroes, Cheng Buji. The reason for this was very simple. The Wei family patriarch was afraid of death. Even though Chu Xiu had killed the Wei family patriarch in the end, until the last moment of his life, the Wei family patriarch did not choose to burn his blood essence to fight to the death. After all, for a martial artist of his age, his qi and blood had already faded. Burning his blood essence was equivalent to burning his lifespan. It was a pity that even if he did not fight to the death, Chu Xiu would fight to the death. The Wei family patriarch fantasized that he could escape unscathed and watch Chu Xiu suffer. In the end, the blood essence that he did not burn was scattered all over the ground. Looking at the people around him, Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "The Wei family killed Lord Wei Juduan and looked down on the Guanzhong torture room's rules. They are traitors. Now that the Wei family patriarch has been executed, the rest of you, follow me to the Wei family and wipe them out completely." Yang Ling followed behind Chu Xiu and shouted, "Follow official Chu and kill the Wei family." In terms of strength and status, Yang Ling was naturally inferior to Chu Xiu. However, his identity as Wei Juduan's adopted son was very useful at this time. With Wei Juduan's death, he was naturally seen as Wei Juduan's successor by the other martial artists. At least in the eyes of these martial artists from the Guanxi branch, Yang Ling's words were more effective than Chu Xiu's. The crowd surged out of the courtyard. Chu Xiu called Du Guangzhong and the others over and transmitted his voice in a low voice. "You guys don't have to go to destroy the Wei family." Du Guangzhong immediately panicked. Destroying the Wei family was a great merit. What did official Chu mean by this? He did not want them to achieve any merit. Was he prepared to abandon them? Seeing Du Guangzhong's hesitant expression, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Don't think too much. I have other things for you to do. You have seen Wei Juduan's corpse. Bring Qin Fang, Lu Qingli, and the others to deal with it. You are all professionals. You should be able to deal with it to the extent that others can't see through it. If you really can't, then destroy the corpse. It doesn't matter." Chu Xiu had framed the Wei family for killing Wei Juduan. If this matter was spread to the outside world, no one would believe it. Chu Xiu did not expect them to believe it either. It would be fine as long as a small number of people chose to believe it. Now, Chu Xiu was dealing with Wei Judwan's corpse not to deceive others, but to have a reasonable explanation. At the very least, he could save face. Chapter 332. In the Nine Plains Wei family, the family head, Wei Mok, felt a little uneasy. However, he believed that there shouldn't be any changes to the situation. Wei Judwan definitely wanted to suppress Chu Xiu. With his status as the disciplinary officer, Wei Mok couldn't think of any way for Chu Xiu to break out of this predicament. Moreover, it would be useless even if they tried to use force. They were two experts at the oneness of heaven and man realm. Who in the Guanxi region could defeat them? However, at this moment, an intense battle cry came from outside the Wei family's manor. Wei Mok stood up abruptly, pushed the door open and shouted, "What's going on? Who dares to behave atrociously in my Wei family?" At this time, a Wei family disciple ran over with a panicked expression and shouted, "Family head! Not good! Chu Xiu brought his men to attack our Wei clan and even said that the old ancestor killed Wei Judwan and has been executed. Our Wei clan despises the laws of the Guanzhong torture room and wants to destroy our Wei clan." Wei Mok's figure swayed as he shouted, "Impossible!" He knew what the Wei clan's ancestor had gone to do. Why would the ancestor kill Wei Judwan for no reason? This was definitely a conspiracy. That Wei family disciple said miserably, "Family head, I know it's impossible, but Chu Xiu has already fought his way in. They didn't even give us a chance to explain ourselves." Wei Mok hurriedly ran to the front yard. The people of the Wei clan had already been forced to retreat step by step under the blades of the Guanzhong torture room martial artists. There was basically no room for them to retaliate. If all the Wulin forces in the entire Guanxi area united, they would indeed be more powerful than the Guanxi branch. However, if they were to face a force alone, the power of the Guanzhong torture room would be overwhelming. Wei Mok's eyes turned red when he saw this scene. The Wei family had never lost so many people in the Jianghu for so many years. These were the future hopes of the Wei family. Wei Mok shouted, "Stop! Chu Xiu, what do you mean by this? You said that my Wei family's ancestor killed Wei Judwan, but where is the evidence? No matter what, the Wei family is a big family in Guanxi, yet you want to destroy us just like that? Where are the laws and regulations of the Guanzhong torture room? What about the rules? Also, you're just an inspector of the Jian province. What right do you have to bring people to attack my Wei family?" What Chu Xiu was doing now was actually unreasonable according to the rules, but it didn't matter. Chu Xiu was here to kill people, so why would he care about whether it was reasonable or not? Therefore, in the face of Wei Mok's question, Chu Xiu only sneered coldly. Without saying a word, he charged forward with his saber. In the past, when Chu Xiu was at the Three-Flower Realm, he had fought with Wei Mok. Wei Mok's strength was considered mediocre even among the Five Qis origin realm martial artists. After all, the Wei family had been in a corner of Guanxi for a long time. Although Wei Mok was the family master, he basically didn't fight. Even if he did, it wasn't a battle of life and death. In addition, the Wei family's inherited martial arts were weak, which led to the opponent's combat strength being very low. At least, it was much lower than the five heroes of Jiangdong. Not to mention Qing Buji, Wei Mok couldn't even compare to LV Tong and Dong Xiangyi. After all, these people were often in the Jianghu and had almost never stopped fighting. At this moment, when Chu Xiu slashed with his saber, the Avicii demonic qi was fused with the blood-refined divine aura. In addition, Chu Xiu had directly stepped into the selfless killing realm. His killing intent was also condensed in this saber. This could be said to be extremely evil, and it directly caused Wei Mok's expression to change drastically. The ice sword on the long sword in his hand was condensed to the extreme. He even directly burned his qi and blood and spat out a mouthful of blood, causing the ice blue sword to be mixed with a trace of blood red. Wei Mok's attack was much more decisive than the Wei family's old ancestor. When he saw that the situation was not good, he immediately burned his qi and blood. Unfortunately, he didn't have the Wei family's old ancestor's strength. In front of Chu Xiu, it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. As the saber fell, Wei Mok's sword shattered, and the long sword in his hand also shattered. Wei Mok's entire body was slashed by the saber, and he vomited blood and was sent flying. Chu Xiu's hand formed the inner binding seal, and his figure was like a black light. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Wei Mok. The surging demonic qi that contained the evil divinity slashed down, and this time, Wei Mok's entire body was directly cut into two. With Wei Mok's current strength, he didn't even have the qualifications to withstand Chu Xiu's complete 3 blades of Avicii. Wei Mok's corpse fell, and the blood mist in the air didn't dissipate. This caused the Wei family members to be stunned for a moment, and then they immediately dispersed. Previously, the Wei family members didn't disperse, and they still had the courage to resist, because they had a patriarch like Wei Mok. But now, they saw their patriarch being killed by Chu Xiu in 2 slashes. This could be said to be extremely powerful, and they instantly collapsed and started to flee. There was no need for Chu Xiu to go personally, the others could do it. Chu Xiu said to Ghost Hand Monarch, "Search the Wei family. These years, the Wei family has violated the rules of the Guanzhong torture room many times. These are all evidence. Gather the other financial and cultivation resources and distribute them after the matter is over." Ghost Hand Monarch nodded with a smile. He was very good at this kind of thing. "Right, Lord, what should we do with Wei Changling?" Ghost Hand Monarch suddenly remembered this person. Although he was a member of the Wei family, he was also the inspector of the Guanzhong torture room. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "The Wei family is rebelling. As a member of the Wei family, how can Wei Changling be anything good? He is a spy who infiltrated the Guanzhong torture room. Of course, he has to be killed." Ghost Hand Monarch nodded. At this time, Tanya heard this and suddenly said, "Lord, you don't have to do anything about this. Leave it to me and Yen Bugui. Last time, we let this old man escape. This time, he won't be able to escape." Chu Xiu nodded and suddenly asked, "Have you touched the threshold of the 3-flower realm?" Tanya nodded and said, "Last time when I fought with Wei Changling, I sensed it. After all, I have been an assassin for so many years. Just relying on seclusion to gain enlightenment is not as fast as fighting to the death." These two people's performance in the Heavenly Sin Division had been outstanding. If there were no accidents, they could even rise to the Blue Dragon Society headquarters in the future. It was not strange that they had entered the 3-flower realm now. After the Wei family was defeated, they were basically at the mercy of Chu Xiu and the others. However, the Wei family had so many martial artists, and Chu Xiu could not kill them all. Some martial artists who had escaped from the Wei family remembered that the Wei family still had Wei Changling, so they went to the Spirit State Prefecture to inform Wei Changling. At this time, Wei Changling was still recovering in the hall. Last time, he had suffered greatly at the hands of Tangya and Yen Bugui, and his injuries had not yet healed. When he received the news of the Wei family's destruction, Wei Changling's first reaction was disbelief, and his second reaction was terror. The Wei family was destroyed, and his greatest support was destroyed. Wei Juduan, who could suppress Chu Xiu in Guanxi, was also dead. Wouldn't Chu Xiu be able to crush him as easily as crushing an ant? As for whether Chu Xiu would be punished by the Guanzhong torture room in the future, Wei Changling did not even dare to think about it. In his view, Chu Xiu had already gone crazy. He dared to kill anyone, and wanted to kill anyone. His forefather and Wei Juduan were both dead. Was he still missing? So when he received the news, Wei Changling immediately prepared to flee. But when he stepped out of the hall, he was met by Tangya, Yen Bugui, and a group of martial artists under Chu Xiu's command. Before Wei Changling could speak, Tangya said with a smile, "Official Wei, we have come to send you on your way." As he finished, Tangya and Yen Bugui attacked together. As for the others, they were only responsible for watching Wei Changling's subordinates. In reality, even if no one was watching, Wei Changling's subordinates would not dare to attack. How many days had it been since Wei Changling became the inspector? These people were the subordinates of the previous inspector, Kai Jingsheng. They had no loyalty to Wei Changling. Also, As Chu Xiu attacked, all of Guanxi was in an uproar. Ordinary Jianghu constables like them did not dare to participate. Tang Ya and Yan Bugui did not take long to kill Wei Chongling. Last time, the two of them had worked together to seriously injure Wei Chongling. This time, Wei Chongling had not recovered from his injuries, and he was afraid. His combat power was not as good as last time. So in less than 15 minutes, Wei Chongling was killed in the fight between Tang Ya and Yan Bugui. As Wei Chongling died, the Nine Plains Wei family became a part of Guanxi's history. Even if some of the branch family members escaped in 2s and 3s, they probably did not dare to stay in Guanzhong. The events in Guanxi swept through all of Guanzhong like a storm. The news that Chu Xiu released to the outside world was that the Wei family had broken the law, doing all sorts of things that went against the laws of the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall. Thus, he had been called over by Wei Juduan for questioning. In the end, the old ancestor of the Wei family had launched a sneak attack on Wei Juduan in anger, causing Wei Juduan's death. As for Chu Xiu, in order to avenge his superior, he had risked his life to kill the old ancestor of the Wei family, destroying the Wei family. Chu Xiu had released this news to the outside, and he had sent the same news to the headquarters. But anyone in their right mind would not believe Chu Xiu's words. The Wei family had done these things for a long time. Had Wei Juduan lost his mind? He was close to retirement before coming to investigate the Wei family. This clearly did not make sense. Also, the Wei family could not have killed Wei Juduan. Who was Wei Juduan? He was not a minor character, but the torture officer of the Guanzhong torture room. While he was old and about to retire, he was still one of the upper echelons of the Guanzhong torture room. The Nine Plains Wei family was a large family in Guanzhong. They were famous in all of Guanzhong, much less in Guanzhong. But Guanzhong was the Guanzhong of the Guanzhong torture room. The Wei family dared to kill the Guanxi torture officer in a branch of the Guanzhong torture room? Even if the forefather of the Wei family drank a jar of fake wine, he would not do something like this. Chapter 333. The excuse that Chu Xiu had spread was very clumsy, so clumsy that people did not need to analyze it to guess that this was a fantasy story. People even suspected that it was Chu Xiu who had killed Wei Juduan. This time, people had spread rumors that Wei Juduan had allied with the Wei family to suppress Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu had a reason to act. However, the only thing people were puzzled about was how Chu Xiu had managed to kill two Unity of Heaven experts. His strength should not be abnormal to such a degree, right? In any case, this matter had caused an uproar. Everyone in Guanzhong wanted to see how the main hall would handle the matter of Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu appeared very calm at this time. He was still waiting in the provincial government as though he had not killed them. 3 days later, Yuqi rushed over from the main hall, traveling day and night. Seeing Chu Xiu's limited appearance, Yuqi couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Brother Chu, you've caused such a huge commotion, yet you can still sit still?" Chu Xiu had someone pour a cup of tea for Yuqi. He said coolly, "I have a clear conscience. Why can't I sit still?" Yuqi took a step closer and said gravely, "Brother Chu, you really did not kill Wei Juduan?" Chu Xiu said with a serious expression, "Brother Yuqi, you also suspect me? While I have conflicts with Wei Juduan, he is still my superior. How can I, Chu Xiu, do such a disgraceful thing?" Yuqi looked suspiciously at Chu Xiu. In any case, he did not believe Chu Xiu's words. However, he had not thought that Chu Xiu would tell him the truth. Yuqi said gravely, "Brother Chu, you know how much trouble you have caused this time. Right now, the hall master has sent me to inform you to go to the main hall for questioning. The main hall will send people to investigate Wei Juduan's death and the Wei family's matter. Come with me now. Of course, don't think about escaping." After Wei Juduan's death, the experts of the criminal division immediately sealed off the roads to Guanzhong. "You cannot escape." Chu Xiu smiled freely and said, "I, Chu Xiu, have a clear conscience. Why should I escape?" Yuqi looked deeply at Chu Xiu and said, "I hope so. Since Brother Chu has a clear conscience, then come with me to the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall to be interrogated. We have to leave now. I hope Brother Chu will not make things difficult for me." Yuqi's attitude toward Chu Xiu did not change much because he was not sure if Chu Xiu could make it through this time. If it was someone else who had killed their superior, they would certainly be heavily punished. The lightest punishment would be having their martial arts crippled and being imprisoned in the Black Dungeon for the rest of their lives. But if this person was Chu Xiu, then things would be different. With Chu Xiu's strength and talent, he had already become the face of the Guanzhong torture room. In the end, the Guanzhong torture room wanted to punish him. One reason was that it was a pity, and the other was that it felt like slapping his own face. So until the end, no one knew what Chu Xiu's fate would be. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't worry. Since I have a clear conscience, I will not make things difficult for Brother Yuqi." Yuqi shrugged his shoulders. Whether Chu Xiu really had a clear conscience, only Chu Xiu himself knew. Anyway, his task was only to bring Chu Xiu to the main hall. He didn't care about anything else. However, according to Yuqi's understanding of Chu Xiu, although this person was a little crazy in some things, he was definitely not an idiot. Chu Xiu would not do something like putting himself in danger. Looking at Chu Xiu's calm appearance, could it be that he was already confident? The news that Chu Xiu followed Yuqi to the headquarters spread quickly. Of course, this was also the reason why Chu Xiu did not ask the Ghost Hand King and the others to cover up the news. As soon as this news came out, there was a sudden burst of discussion in the Guanxi area. Of course, there were also some people who secretly carried out all kinds of small tricks. Among the patrol envoys of the Guanxi region, Yang Ling was already Chu Xiu's man. Furthermore, he was a witness of this incident and was also Wei Juduan's adopted son. Yang Ling had long been summoned to the headquarters alone. Fang Hua and Sidu Xing did not think much of it after hearing the news. They were not young anymore, and their ambitions were not that big. Although they were also afraid of the fact that Wei Juduan had died in the hands of Chu Xiu, they did not dare to have any other thoughts. As for the remaining one, Jiang Taoran, he was secretly making some small moves. Jiang Taoran only had the strength of the Three-Flower Realm. Even if Wei Juduan died, Chu Xiu could not return to Guanxi, and he could not be the penal officer. However, Jiang Taoran really did not want Chu Xiu to return to Guanxi. The reason was very simple. He could not accept Chu Xiu's strength. Although Jiang Taoran was low-key and slippery, he was actually a scheming person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to snatch a prefecture from the hands of Chu Xiu and Wei Hanshan during their fierce battle, and then reap the benefits. Previously, Chu Xiu's move to control the business lifeline of the entire Guanxi area had already made him very dissatisfied. Although Chu Xiu didn't let them suffer a loss and still gave them a large portion of the profits, Jiang Taoran was still dissatisfied. He was a patrol inspector, but in the end he was like a puppet. He had no prestige at all. How could that be? He was not old guys like Situ Xing and Fang Hua, who had no ambition. As long as there were benefits, everything was negotiable. Therefore, Jiang Taoran secretly spread the news that Chu Xiu had killed Wei Juduan and that this time, he would be severely punished by the Guanzhong torture room. He tried to stir up the momentum in Guanxi and add fuel to the fire, so that Chu Xiu would not be able to return. However, Jiang Taoran was cautious by nature, and he was very careful. He only added fuel to the fire in the dark, and he did not dare to show himself. Compared to Jiang Taoran, there were people who did things more directly, such as the Zhang family of Yuan Continent. The Zhang family of Yuan Continent was the only big family in Guanxi that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Wei family of Jiyuan. The Zhang family's great ancestor, Zhang Wanshan, also had the strength of the unity of heaven and man realm, but he was older than the Wei family's great ancestor. Zhang Wanshan was already more than 180 years old this year. Although warriors in the unity of heaven and man realm could theoretically live up to 200 years, this was only in theory. Warriors often had to face all kinds of killings in the pugilistic world. It was extremely cruel, and it was common for them to be seriously injured. When they fought with their lives on the line, they would even have to burn their blood essence. Although this kind of injury could be recovered in the later stages, it would still leave behind some hidden dangers. When a warrior's qi and blood declined, it would gradually erupt. Therefore, there were actually not many warriors who could live up to 200 years old at the unity of heaven and man realm. It was already not easy for the Jiang family's great ancestor to live to this age. At this time, the Jiang family's Jiang Kunz was reporting to Jiang Wanshan about Chu Xiu with a serious expression. Jiang Wanshan was wearing a golden brocade robe. His hair and beard were all white, but his face was still rosy. Although he was old, he was still a distance away from the end of his lifespan. After listening to Jiang Kunz's narration, after a while, Jiang Wanshan asked in a deep voice, "What do you think of this matter?" Jiang Kunz hesitated for a moment before saying, "It should be a good thing. The Wei family has been fighting with our Jiang family for so many years. Now that the Wei family has finally been destroyed, Chu Xiu was summoned to the headquarters this time. I reckon he's in trouble. Our Jiang family should be rising." Jiang Wanshan shook his head when he heard that. Without the lips, the teeth will feel the cold. You only saw the Wei family fighting with our Jiang family for so many years, but you didn't see the mutual support between our Jiang family and the Wei family all these years. Guanzhong torture room is Guanzhong torture room, and our pugilistic world forces are pugilistic world forces. No matter how we fight with the Wei family, we are on the same side. As long as Guanzhong torture room goes overboard, our two families can put down all the grudges and join hands at any time. Now that the Wei family has been destroyed, it's equivalent to losing half of the people to bear the pressure for our Jiang family. If anything happens in the future, our Jiang family will have to bear it alone. Jiang Kunz broke out in a cold sweat. After all, he was still young and could not see as far as Jiang Wanshan. Then, "Great ancestor, what should we do now?" Jiang Wanshan said in a deep voice, "We can't let Chu Xiu return to Guanxi. You know Chu Xiu's character. He's ambitious and domineering. This time, we don't know what methods he used, but Wei Juduan and Wei Hanshan actually died in his hands. Our Jiang family has had conflicts with Chu Xiu before. If we let him return to Guanxi, what will happen to our Jiang family? We will probably become the second Wei family." Jiang Kunz hesitated. "But how can our Jiang family influence the headquarters? My Jiang family doesn't have anyone in the headquarters." Jiang Wanshan said in a deep voice, "We don't have anyone there, and we don't need them to do anything. Go and gather all the forces that have a good relationship with our Jiang family. Let's write a joint petition and request Guanzhong torture room to punish Chu Xiu. What the Guanzhong disciplinary hall wants is stability. Right now, Chu Xiu's existence has already caused the Guanxi region to be unstable. As long as we create a large enough commotion, even the Guanzhong disciplinary hall will not be able to ignore it." Jiang Kunz nodded repeatedly after hearing this. The great ancestor was indeed the great ancestor. He was indeed far-sighted. In the martial world, there were some things that could be solved even if one didn't rely on fighting and killing. Just like now, the Jiang family only needed to move their lips, and they could increase the pressure on Chu Xiu in the main hall. At this time, Chu Xiu still did not know about the changes in Guanxi. After arriving at Guanzhong City, Chu Yuansheng personally came to pick up Chu Xiu. Seeing Chu Xiu, Chu Yuansheng sighed and said, "Brother Chu, how did things become like this? Did you really kill Wei Juduan?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Big brother, don't you believe me? I, Chu Xiu, have always been a person who doesn't offend others if they don't offend me. I was forced to do this." Chu Xiu did not say that he killed Wei Juduan, but he also did not say that he did not kill Wei Juduan. However, psychologically, Chu Yuansheng was on Chu Xiu's side. His life was saved by Chu Xiu, and although Chu Xiu had always been extremely ruthless, it seemed that Chu Xiu had never taken the initiative to attack him. So subconsciously, Chu Yuansheng was still on Chu Xiu's side. Chapter 334. Chu Yuansheng rarely interfered with the affairs of the Guanzhong torture room, but this time, Chu Yuansheng really didn't want anything to happen to Chu Xiu. Looking at Yuqi, Chu Yuansheng said in a low voice, "Brother Chu has done so much for the Guanzhong torture room, and now you're going to punish him because of a groundless matter?" Yuqi smiled bitterly and said, "Hero Chu, you've misunderstood. The hall master and the other lords don't want Brother Chu to be wrongly accused, so they called him to the main hall for questioning. If Brother Chu is innocent, then they will naturally refute the rumors. Moreover, the hall master only invited Brother Chu here, not arrested him. Otherwise, the people going would not be me, but those guys from the criminal division. Don't worry, Hero Chu. Tomorrow, the hall master and the others will gather at the main hall to discuss this matter. Brother Chu is the face of the Guanzhong torture room, so the hall master and the others will definitely handle this matter carefully. Chu Yuanxing nodded and said, "That's good. Since it's like this, Brother Chu can stay at my place today. Is there any problem?" Yuchi nodded and said, "Of course, Brother Chu is not a prisoner. Naturally, you can stay wherever you want." Chu Xiu didn't escape halfway. Now that they were in Guanzhong City, Yuchi naturally didn't worry that Chu Xiu would escape. After Chu Yuanxing brought Chu Xiu to his house, he immediately said to him, "Brother Chu, don't worry. I'll go talk to Brother Guan and guarantee that you'll be fine this time." Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Brother Chu, you don't have to do this. Your identity is special. If you talk to Hall Master Guan about these things, I'm afraid it won't be good. It'll be easy for others to gossip." Chu Yuanxing snorted and said, "Let whoever wants to say it. Do you think I'm afraid of them?" As Chu Kuanga's only son, this legacy could last for a long time. As long as Guan Xiu was still alive, this legacy could also last for a day. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you very much, Brother Chu. However, there is one more thing I need to trouble Brother Chu with. I need to trouble Brother Chu to give something to someone." As he spoke, Chu Xiu took out a box and handed it to Chu Yuanxing. Chu Yuanxing asked in surprise, "To whom?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Give it to Mrs. Guan." Hearing that Chu Xiu wanted to give the item to Mei Qinglian, Chu Yuanxing couldn't help but frown. "Why are you giving it to her?" Chu Xiu smiled and said, "It's just a small gift for Mrs. Guan. It's used to please a woman. You have to know that sometimes, a woman's pillow talk is more effective than any words." Chu Yuanxing curled his lips and said, "Brother Guan isn't the kind of person who is obsessed with women. I guess it's a waste of time for you to give it." Chu Xiu smiled and didn't speak. He didn't know whether Guan Xiu was obsessed with women or not, but Chu Xiu only knew that Mei Qinglian was not a simple woman. In fact, it was really meaningless for Chu Yuanxing to go this time. Whether it was Guan Xiu or the other people in the Guanzhong torture room, they could accommodate Chu Yuanxing on small matters, but they wouldn't let Chu Yuanxing mess around on such a big matter. However, Chu Yuanxing didn't notice this. Holding the thing that Chu Xiu gave him, Chu Yuanxing went straight to the headquarters. On the way, Chu Yuanxing didn't open the box that Chu Xiu gave him. Although he was also curious about what was inside, Chu Yuanxing's character was still trustworthy. If Chu Xiu didn't let him open it, he naturally couldn't open it. When he came to the study, Guan Xiu was still dealing with official business. Seeing that Chu Yuanxing had come, Guan Xiu directly asked before he could speak, "Are you here for Chu Xiu's matter?" Chu Yuanxing was stunned. He swallowed what he was about to say and just nodded. "It's because of Chu Xiu. Brother Guan, since Chu Xiu joined the Guanzhong torture room, he has made a lot of contributions to the Guanzhong torture room. If you punish him now, I'm afraid that the other disciples of the Guanzhong torture room will be bitterly disappointed." Guan Xiu shook her head and said, "If it was something else, I can promise you, but Chu Xiu's matter is a bit too big. It must be dealt with strictly. He has made a lot of contributions to the Guanzhong torture room, but if he really offended his superiors and killed his colleagues, I will definitely not forgive him." Seeing that Chu Yuanxing still wanted to say something, Guan Xiu shook her head and said, "All right, Yuanxing, go out. From now on, don't get involved in this matter." Chu Yuanxing had known Guan Xiu since he was a child, so he naturally knew what kind of character Guan Xiu had. Hearing that Guan Xiu said it resolutely, Chu Yuanxing knew that he wouldn't relent, so he could only leave resentfully. After walking a distance away from the study, Chu Yuanxing remembered that he still had something to give to Mei Qinglian. However, as a man, wasn't it a little too reckless to break into Guan Xiu's house? Just as Chu Yuanxing was in a dilemma, he happened to see Mei Qinglian walk in from outside. He quickly handed the box to Mei Qinglian and said softly, "Sister-in-law, this is what Chu Xiu wants to give you. I hope you can put in a good word for my brother in front of the hall master." When he said this, Chu Yuanxing lowered his head. He didn't even dare to look at Mei Qinglian's eyes. For some reason, he didn't fear Guan Xiu at all, but he was a little afraid of Mei Qinglian. After taking the box, a strange look appeared in Mei Qinglian's eyes. She slowly said, "As a woman, I shouldn't meddle in master's affairs. However, no matter what, Chu Xiu is an outstanding talent of the Guanzhong torture room's younger generation. It's better to handle this matter carefully. Don't worry, I'll talk to master." Hearing Mei Qinglian say this, Chu Yuanxing also breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly left. After nightfall, Chu Xiu was sitting in Chu Yuanxing's guest room with a cup of tea in his hand, as if he was waiting for someone. After a while, a black demonic aura rose in the room out of nowhere. As the demonic aura lingered, Mei Qinglian, who was wearing a red dress, walked out. Her red lips were like fire, and coupled with her cold face, it added to her charm. However, Mei Qinglian didn't look like an ordinary weak woman. Her aura was extremely powerful, and even Chu Xiu could feel the immense pressure. Mei Qinglian said calmly, "Chu Xiu, do you know that you're playing with fire now? You discovered my secret and even lured me here. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you?" Chu Xiu poured a cup of tea for Mei Qinglian and said slowly, "If a martial Dao master wants to kill me, he doesn't even need to say a word. He can crush me with a finger. Since I'm fine now, it proves that Madam doesn't want to kill me yet, right?" Mei Qinglian looked at Chu Xiu with a strange look in her eyes. Actually, she had always been interested in Chu Xiu. She had seen many young talents in the pugilistic world. She had even seen the little celestial master, Zhang Qingzhen, before. However, it was the first time that someone from a humble background could reach the heights that Chu Xiu had. Mei Qinglian's beautiful eyes twitched, and she said calmly, "I won't kill you now, but it doesn't mean that I won't kill you in the next moment. Women are fickle, don't you know? Tell me, how did you know that I'm from the devil cult? Also, who are you? Why do you know the totem of the Devil Heart Hall?" Mei Qinglian took out a piece of silk cloth. There was a complicated and strange pattern drawn on it. This was the totem of the Kunlun Devil Cult's Devil Heart Hall. Other than the orthodox inheritors of the Kunlun Devil Cult, no one else knew about this thing. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "There are many people who practice devil arts in this world. However, to have such pure devil qi and hide it secretly, other than the Kunlun Devil Cult, I can't think of anyone else. If Madam is from the Kunlun Devil Cult, you'll naturally be able to recognize this thing. If you can't, I have other excuses to deal with it. As for why I know about this thing, it's very simple. It's because I'm also a disciple of the Kunlun Devil Cult. The devil is formless, and the great Tao is boundless. The holy fire refines the heart, and the devil flame devours the sky. I inherited the technique of the Devil Heart Hall's Hall Master, 9 Transformation Devil Heart, Nangong Wuming. Of course, it's not surprising that I know about this." Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Mei Qinglian was not as shocked as Mr. Lu in the past. This was because she had already guessed in this aspect. She had even tried to test Chu Xiu before. After all, Chu Xiu had too many devil arts. If he had obtained them all by chance, it would be too much of a coincidence. If not for the fact that Chu Xiu also knew the techniques of Buddhism and Taoism, Mei Qinglian could even confirm that Chu Xiu was from the devil cult. Later, after Chu Xiu obtained the heavenly demon dance, Mei Qinglian had also tried to test Chu Xiu's attitude towards the Kunlun devil cult. After all, whether it was the righteous Tao or the rogue cultivators in Jianghu, most people did not have a good impression of the devil cult. However, Chu Xiu was different. He did not seem to have a bad impression of the Kunlun devil cult. Mei Qinglian suddenly thought of what Chu Xiu had done in Eastern Qi. She asked, "Have you been in contact with the people of the phaseless devil sect?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Yes, Mr. Lu from the phaseless devil sect helped me a lot." Mei Qinglian sneered and said, "Mr. Lu? Are you talking about that kid Lu Jin?" Their phaseless demon sect was extremely loyal to the Kunlun demon sect. Even now, They were still shouting, "Saint Sect," as though they had gone mad. "You can't be thinking that I'm the same as those fellows from the Phaseless Demon Sect, selflessly helping you after hearing that you're a disciple of the Kunlun Demon Sect, right? I forgot to tell you that although I have a relationship with the Kunlun Devil Cult, I am not a direct descendant of the Kunlun Devil Cult. I am a member of the Maiden Demon Sect. How can you expect a sect that has been destroyed to be loyal to the Kunlun Devil Cult? Not to mention that you are just a lucky person who accidentally obtained the inheritance of the Kunlun Devil Cult. Even if you are the successor of the Patriarch Dugu, why should I help you selflessly?" Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. He did not expect that Mei Qinglian's real identity was the same as Mr. Liu and the others. She was not a direct descendant of the Kunlun Devil Cult. The Maiden Demon Sect was one of the vassal sects of the Kunlun Devil Cult in the past. Just like the Yu Palace, there were only female disciples in the entire sect. However, the Maiden Demon Sect was more unlucky. The Phaseless Devil Sect was only hidden in the dark. Their own strength was still very strong, and they were still one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. However, the Maiden Demon Sect had disappeared without a trace 100 years ago. Even the pugilistic world thought that the Maiden Demon Sect had completely lost its inheritance. They did not expect that there was still a Mei Qinglian. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.